Chapter 35-45. In the face of Long Chen's provocative gaze and the gazes of the surrounding provenance ancestor gods of the Fifth Era, celestial ancestor Yang Mei couldn't sit still. He was indeed wondering why Long Chen would choose to provoke him at this time, but he couldn't figure it out. Today, it was Long Chen. She was asking him if he dared to accept the challenge. The surrounding ancestral gods of the Fifth Era were naturally very curious about this question. Immortal ancestor Yang Mei couldn't say no to that scorching gaze. What are you trying to say? Immortal ancestor Yang Mei was quite cautious. Long Chen said, I'll tell you the truth. Previously, you provoked me and called me trash. He didn't dare to participate in the battle. At that time, I thought you were very powerful, so I accepted it. However, I saw your battle just now, and it's actually just so. Since you're so mediocre, I'm very displeased. Although I still don't want to participate in the Fifth Era's ancestor god battle, I still don't want to. I want to return to you everything you humiliated me with. Do you have the guts to accept my Long Chen's challenge? In fact, in the previous conversation, immortal ancestor Yang Mei definitely wasn't trying to humiliate Long Chen. However, since Long Chen said it like this, immortal ancestor Yang Mei couldn't do anything about it. Now he was in a difficult position. In fact, the great wizard ancestor was the one who had asked him to provoke Long Chen. However, Long Chen didn't fall for it. But at this moment, he actually appeared. This was an opportunity. Thinking up to this point, Yang Mei's celestial ancestor said, What's there to dare? Do you think I'm afraid of a brat like you? There's no time to lose. Let's have a match right now to determine the victor. Do you dare? Of course. Without another word, Long Chen arrived at the previous battlefield. The one overseeing this battlefield was none other than the Chaos Ancestor God. Celestial Ancestor Yang Mei let out a cold snort and followed suit to the battlefield. The situation here instantly attracted the attention of all the Creator Gods. He had originally thought that the Fifth Era's Ancestor God battle would have nothing to do with Long Chen. He had never expected that he would appear again. In truth, when they had heard the rumors that Long Chen had defeated an elder god of destruction from the Fifth Era, they had guessed that Long Chen would appear. They hadn't expected that he would appear so soon. It seemed that as long as Long Chen was around, there would definitely be conflict. For a time, there was another uproar. Although immortal ancestor Yang Mei's strength is terrifying, his intelligence is low. The Chaos Hole Shaman ancestor sent him to provoke me. On the other hand, I can easily make you accept my challenge. Long Chen indeed discovered that although the Creator Gods had an endless history, time did not equate to wisdom. Their wisdom was born from heaven and earth. Some of the Creator Gods weren't even as smart as the people of Poplar Town. Of course, this also had something to do with the fact that he had lost his memory. In any case, the inexplicable battle that everyone was looking forward to instantly broke out. It was a very strange phenomenon. Once Long Chen participated, he instantly became the center of attention. There had been many exciting battles before, but everyone paid special attention to this one. It might be because there was only one battle, but it was more likely that it was because they had heard that Long Chen had the combat power of the Fifth Era's ancestor god. Now they could finally confirm it. It has begun. The man in front of him had long green hair that fluttered like a green hat. He had a pair of slender green eyebrows and eyes that looked like two willow leaves. You asked for it. Immortal ancestor Yang Mei said. One could clearly feel the power of the origin of five worlds erupting in an instant. Its power was indeed not inferior to the Jade Emperor Celestial Thearchus. This opponent couldn't be underestimated. Willow. The world essence appeared in front of him, which was a jade green ring. However, in the blink of an eye, the jade green ring transformed into billions upon billions of smaller rings, all of which danced in the air, forming an enormous sphere that surrounded Long Chen and immortal ancestor Yang Mei. However, Long Chen wasn't worried, because he had seen immortal ancestor Yang Mei use this law. This was the law of life. He already had a way to break it. At this time, the hundreds of millions of dark green rings began to shrink. The countless rings gathered together. These were all parts of the world's source energy. They condensed together, turning into an incomparably huge willow tree. World Tree. Its law finally took shape. In an instant, this incomparably huge world tree spread out. Its size was billions of times larger and it was endless. It covered all the stars and had a destructive power. Previously, Celestial ancestor Yang Mei had relied on the law of the world tree to inflict a certain amount of damage on her opponent at the beginning and finally succeed. All living beings. However, Long Chen had already thought of a way. His method was to break through from the inside. All living beings were born inside the world tree. This was a towering tree, and Long Chen's attack could be said to be just a small weed. Even if the weed grew on the world tree and absorbed its nutrients, it still couldn't do much. However, Long Chen's law was different. All living beings had infinite possibilities. When the world tree had just taken shape and before it could attack, when everyone was still admiring the number of 6th era ancestral gods this world tree could instantly kill, there was a terrifying tearing sound. Everyone clearly saw the world tree begin to wither, and as it withered, incomparably sharp and huge weeds like blades pierced through the branches of the world tree. Rip! The world tree was torn open. Then, under the incredulous gaze of immortal ancestor Yang Mei, the world tree completely changed, withered, and exploded. Only the world origin remained next to immortal ancestor Yang Mei. The entire world tree had been destroyed by Long Chen, and the weeds had absorbed the nutrients of the world behemoth, becoming tougher, crazier, and sharper. It was a terrifying weapon. Because he had observed the opponent's law and thought of a way to break it, Long Chen easily broke the opponent's attack. However, this was only the beginning. The weeds that were born from all living beings were now entangling immortal ancestor Yang Mei. The green leaves were like blades that pierced through the layers of space, causing the surrounding world to tremble. The most ordinary weeds now had a heaven-defying killing power. Not only that. Follow up the victory. At this time, Long Chen's slaughter sword appeared in his hands. He could use 3 kinds of world origin at the same time, completely unaffected. While the life sword controlled the weeds, the slaughter sword flickered and swallowed the sword light. 9 deaths killing sword. Forbidden world. The law of time did not forget to intervene. The simultaneous attack of the 3 ancestral dragon laws was basically one of Long Chen's biggest trump cards. However, immortal ancestor Yang Mei was worthy of being in the 5th era's primordial ancestor realm. After the giant tree of world was destroyed, he was the first to respond to Long Chen's attack. Hollow world. The green ring first enlarged and rotated in front of him. Immortal ancestor Yang Mei was behind this ring. Many branches extended from his body and together with his hands, he controlled the green ring in front of him. For a moment, a change in the ring was born. This was something similar to the law of space. Legend has it that immortal ancestor Yang Mei is a strange willow with a hollow body. Because his body is empty, he can swallow a lot of things. This must be the reason why he knows some law of space. However, it had to be said that the power of the hollow world was quite overbearing. Immortal ancestor Yang Mei was born with the ability to use such laws. For a moment, the sharp blades of the wild grass, the 9 divine dragons of the 9 deaths killing sword, and the time-restricted world laws were all devoured when they appeared in front of immortal ancestor Yang Mei. It was not swallowed, but there was a huge world inside that directly contained these powers. It was not easy to evacuate these things, but this was a matter for immortal ancestor Yang Mei later. Take. Let's see what other tricks you have. After withdrawing many of Long Chen's attacks, immortal ancestor Yang Mei finally counterattacked. He was very excited, but in fact, he was very ferocious because he was indeed suppressed by Long Chen at the beginning. At least for now, it completely showed that Long Chen had the strength to fight against him and the 5th era's primordial ancestor god. After thinking about it carefully, he understood why Long Chen was so terrifying. Chapter 35-46. At such a juncture, the more excited he was, the more dangerous it would be. I must defeat him by force. Otherwise, not just my confidence, but the confidence of many ancestor gods will be crushed by him. This kid is too terrifying. No wonder so many 4th era ancestor gods want his life. Ancestor Yang Mei was a little afraid. However, he had only one choice, and that was to defeat his opponent. That way, he might be able to regain some of his dignity. Too fast, he can really fight against the 5th era ancestor gods now. Too fast, sky-piercing sword ancestor and the others are probably no match for him. His mind was shaken. In fact, it was not just him. After witnessing the 2 battles between Long Chen and ancestor Yang Mei, Long Chen's heaven-defying performance made him want to prove to everyone that he had the ability to fight against the 5th era ancestor gods, regardless of whether he won or not. This is too domineering. If he has such ability, Why didn't he participate in the battle of the 5th era ancestor gods? I don't know, the battle hasn't ended yet. Let's just wait and see. In any case, he has completely surpassed the 6th era ancestor gods. How terrifying. At this rate, it won't be long before he dominates the 5th era ancestor gods. Not long after that, even the 4th era ancestor gods won't be his match. In less than 10 years, he will be one of the 10,000 worlds, and even reach the 3rd era ancestor god realm? I'm afraid that in the future, he will rule over the 10,000 worlds, and the ancestor god alliance will be useless. It seems like we have to find a way to please Long Chen. The more they discussed, the more they felt that Long Chen was terrifying. In fact, they only now realized that it was too late. Previously, many people had been fighting against Long Chen. In the blink of an eye, Long Chen had reached such a level that besides the Ancestor God Alliance, not many people could kill him. Most importantly, it was said that among the 4th era Ancestor Gods, half of the 5th era Ancestor Gods had already expressed their support for Long Chen. It couldn't be helped, he was that domineering now. The inheritance of the 3 Ancestor Dragons. This was no joke. Even if there was only one, when he reached the peak in the future, he would be able to crush all the Ancestor Gods. Of course, the battle between the two did not stop. At this time, after a series of fierce battles, immortal ancestor Yang Mei's true body appeared. It was a willow tree that looked like a giant world tree. It had eyes, arms, and roots that looked like tens of thousands of claws. There were countless dark green branches around it, and the leaves on them were as sharp as the world's origin. There were tens of thousands of them, and they were all terrifying weapons. Celestial ancestor Yang Mei had been forced into a corner, which was why he had used such a method. The dark green ring, which was his world essence, once again split into countless branches, leaves, and trunks. At this moment, celestial ancestor Yang Mei let out an angry roar as he rotated his giant body. Countless branches and leaves shot toward Long Chen. Life Forbidden Zone. This was the law of life. This was a name he came up with himself. It was somewhat similar to the laws of Long Chen, but the nature was completely different. He used the immense killing power of his physical body to form a forbidden zone for life, and Long Chen was in that forbidden zone. Rumble, rumble, rumble. For a moment, it seemed like the entire world was submerged by celestial ancestor Yang Mei's blade-like branches. The terrifying battle was everywhere. From the outside, one could only see that Long Chen was trapped in a vortex that was about to be torn apart. This was just the beginning. The current celestial ancestor Yang Mei seemed to have gone crazy. In fact, Long Chen had observed this law because he had used it to defeat his opponent before. Now, he was using it again, but it was still very powerful. It was still very powerful, and the violent lethality suppressed Long Chen to the point that he couldn't breathe. Of course, he had a way to deal with it. The dragon head on his finger flashed. This was the true law of life. Life extinguishment. Similarly, Nirvana life formed a domain similar to the life forbidden zone. When Yang Mei immortal ancestor surrounded Long Chen was also surrounded by Nirvana life. The effect and intensity of Nirvana life surpassed the opponent, so at this moment, Nirvana life completely fell on Yang Mei immortal ancestor's body. In fact, although celestial ancestor Yang Mei was proficient in the law of life, when he encountered the terrifying law of life, he was restrained instead. This was because his body was a tree. Life extinguishment instantly sucked away more than half of his life force. During this process, celestial ancestor Yang Mei let out a blood-curdling scream. His giant tree body withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. This meant that celestial ancestor Yang Mei had suffered a serious injury. Ah! That cry of pain scared many of the creator gods out of their wits. In their eyes, celestial ancestor Yang Mei was quickly defeated. However, Long Chen did not stay idle. Of course, he wanted to follow up on his victory and end the battle completely. Therefore, he was more decisive than anyone else. After life extinguishment took effect, he put away the life ring and wrapped the time ring around the slaughter ring. The power of time and slaughter instantly fused. Super Space-Time Slaying Sword. It was extremely fast. The moment it erupted, it hit celestial ancestor Yang Mei's giant tree body. Rip! A dazzling sword light erupted, and the withered willow tree exploded in an instant, turning into powder and disappearing without a trace. Of course, Long Chen did not harm the world origin. Therefore, under Long Chen's powerful attack, the dark green ring penetrated countless spaces and hit the great wizard ancestor. The great wizard ancestor held it in his hand. The smoke and the scattered branches and leaves dispersed in an instant. In the battlefield, only Long Chen and the three shining world origins were left. To be honest, at this level, the world origin of life could not be concealed, and everyone could easily see it. Especially the life origin. The power of life that Long Chen showed in this battle could only be described as amazing. Victory! Although it took a lot of effort, Long Chen was still quite satisfied with himself. Of course, this was also due to the fact that he happened to watch celestial ancestor Yang Mei's battle before, so he had a certain understanding of the rules and came up with some countermeasures. Therefore, the battle could be simple and direct. This victory made all the ancestral gods unable to help but cheer for Long Chen. Long Chen looked around and found that among the crowd, the number of people who originally disliked him had greatly decreased. Now, it had basically turned into a kind of awe. This was a good thing. Long Chen did not take the initiative to provoke others, but he also did not like others provoking him. The chaotic whole ancestor held the ring in his hand and listened to the painful cry of celestial ancestor Yang Mei. He then looked at the popular Long Chen and frowned. Long Chen's glory this time was given by him to Long Chen. Originally, he wanted to pull Long Chen into this ranking battle and find a chance to kill Long Chen. He did not expect that Long Chen would not participate no matter what, and after the battle, he gave him a show of strength. As for the matter regarding the ancestral demon creator, he still did not know. If he knew, he would definitely be angrier. Well done. Primordial War Ancestor and others were also in a good mood. Long Chen looked at the ancestral demon creator, who had a faint smile on his face and nodded slightly. Although he did not say much, it was obvious that he was a man of his words. This battle was worth it. At least, it allowed Long Chen to obtain a fourth-era ancestral god. Our team. There were 8 of them. 8 of them, in addition to many of the fifth-era's progenitor ancestral gods. Your final growth will basically not be a problem. However, you fought for it yourself. The primal chaos ancestral god was right beside Long Chen, and he couldn't help but feel a little emotional as he said to Long Chen. 8. However, Long Chen still thought that the safest way was to have more than 10. It would be best if the remaining 2 neutral fourth-era ancestral gods could also join the team to protect his growth. That still required his efforts. However, at that moment, Long Chen saw the Qiyu demon ancestor. He stared at the ring of life in his hand. Remember, time and life were both taken from him. However, he probably didn't know about life. However, he suddenly stared at this life form, his gaze becoming more and more scorching. Within it was a mixture of malevolence, violence, and fury. Finally, those blood-red eyes shifted to Long Chen's body. Long Chen, this thing also came from my Jiuli demon realm. Is it correct or not? He asked Long Chen through gritted teeth. Who would have thought that he would know? The supreme mystical dragons assisted Long Chen in governing the draconic sacrificial continent, allowing this world to constantly expand and the mystical dragon clan to constantly increase. Long Chen would stay in the Evil Good Lake for part of the time. This was because he felt that since the Evil Good Lake was left by the divine Tao Heart Refining Dragon, there should be some hints. Before the new era, the divine Tao Heart Refining Dragon used the Evil Good Lake to carry out rewards and punishments. Those who were kind would be rewarded. After entering the Good Lake, they would be reborn, their marrows and tendons would be cleansed, and they would obtain the fortune of the heavens and earth. Those who were evil would be imprisoned in the Evil Lake, losing their freedom, and living in hardship all day long. They would rather die than live. Therefore, before the new era, this was a place that people yearned for, yet it was also a place that people feared. Long Chen searched the entire Evil Good Lake, but he didn't find anything. In the end, he decided to stop and feel the water of the 2 lakes. The left side of his body was in the Good Lake, while the right side was in the Evil Lake. The water of the Good Lake was intertwined with each other, emitting a fragrance that nourished his body like a divine medicine. On the other hand, the water of the Evil Lake was like a sharp blade that attacked intensely. Even Long Chen would be badly mutilated if he didn't use the origin energy of the world to resist it. Perhaps it was because he was tense all day long and was really tired, but after experiencing the Good and Evil Lake for a while, Long Chen fell into a deep sleep with a peaceful look on his face. In this deep sleep, a dream came. In a trance, Long Chen saw the draconic sacrificial continent from before the new era again. Billions of dragons soared in the sky, and its territory was much larger than it was today. It was truly glorious and powerful. The one and only world of the first era. Vast, majestic, and shocking. Everything thrived under the nourishment of spiritual qi. The larger the world, the more chaotic it should be. However, this place was indeed very orderly. All the dragons seemed to be under a certain order. They were kind, brave, and lived together peacefully. Even when they fought, they would stop at the right time. This order was the evil good lake, and the godly heart-refining dragon. In the eternal sacred realm, somewhere in the ancestral dragon realm, Long Chen saw the vast evil good lake. A huge ancestral dragon was resting in the middle of the evil good lake. Half of its body was golden in the good lake, while the other half was black in the evil lake. The righteousness and evilness of the human world were all under the control of the godly heart-refining dragon. Because of the existence of the godly heart-refining dragon, the righteousness of heaven and earth was under its control. Rumble. The water in the evil good lake rumbled. The kind-hearted ones had been reborn after obtaining the opportunity. The wicked ones had committed all sorts of evil deeds, but after experiencing the calamity of the evil lake, they had decided to repent and become dragons again. The world had its own righteousness, and the godly heart-refining dragon was that righteousness. The scene gave Long Chen a huge shock. In the karma seal of the godly heart-refining dragon, the rules of the godly heart-refining dragon gradually became clearer in Long Chen's eyes. The righteousness of the human world. The righteousness of the human world separated good and evil. The so-called righteousness was a lightning-like path. It was gold and black, and it was the middle line that separated the good lake and the evil lake. Long Chen had already woken up. He looked at the middle line and gained a lot of enlightenment. A rule had already formed in his heart. The lightning that appeared in his hand was actually a lightning bolt. Half of it was gold, and the other half was black. It was split twice in the middle. It was a lightning of judgment. Its name was the righteousness of the human world. The righteousness of the human world separated good and evil. To all living beings, it was a form of punishment. The lightning of the righteousness of the human world danced in Long Chen's hand. However, it did not change and maintained its original appearance. It was like a path. Long Chen stared at it for a long time. He felt that this path was likely to be the message left behind by the godly heart-refining dragon. It was likely to be the place where the origin of the world, karma, was hidden. In that case, where is this path? As if it had heard Long Chen's words, the lightning of the righteousness of the human world guided Long Chen. When Long Chen came out of the evil good lake, the lightning had already pointed him in the right direction. All he had to do was to head in that direction. Indeed, this rule is the guidance left behind by the godly heart-refining dragon. Only I can find it, because only I know about the karma rule. With a new discovery, Long Chen was a little excited. He followed the lightning of the righteousness of the human world, and flew towards the endless starry sky. At this time, he did not have to worry too much about his safety. This was because while Long Chen was in slumber, the ranking battle of the 5th era's ancestor gods was still going on. Now was the time when the ranking battle was going on. Any of the 17 4th era's ancestor gods who left would naturally be suspected. If anything happened, the primordial war ancestor would naturally remind him. Following the direction of the righteousness of the human world, Long Chen advanced rapidly. He even used the Death Realm Dragon Gate to increase his speed. After all, he was anxious. As long as the direction of the righteousness of the human world did not change, it meant that he had not passed his destination. Advance. Advance. After about half a day, the righteousness of the human world finally stopped guiding him. Long Chen looked up and was shocked. He had never expected this. Previously, both time and life had appeared here. Chapter 35-48. Jiuli Demon Region again. Qiyu Fiend Ancestor again. Long Chen could not help but laugh bitterly. His head was hurting. I just don't know why the ancestral dragons like to place the world source in Jiuli Demon Region so much. This is already the 3rd time. Could it be that all the world source is in Jiuli Demon Region? It's just that I don't know where it is hidden? When he came to Jiuli Demon Region for the world source for the 3rd time, Long Chen's guess was not without reason. However, even if that was the case, Long Chen could not do anything. Because he did not know what the other world sources were. Even if he destroyed Xueqi Demon Region, he would not be able to find it. If it was any other Fifth Era world, it would be easier. But it just had to be Xueqi Demon Region. Thinking about it still gave him a headache. Every time he met Qiyu Fiend Ancestor, he could feel the deep jealousy he had towards him. Especially when he took away the key things from him every time. This was undoubtedly challenging his nerves and bottom line time and time again. Qiyu Fiend Ancestor yearned to be stronger even in his dreams. However, the restrictions of the ancestral gods had completely trapped him. Perhaps he was more willing to be an ancestral god of destruction. After all, there was still some hope for the ancestral god of destruction. Now, Qiyu Fiend Ancestor is fighting. The Destiny Astral Ancestor seems to be overseeing the battle. After the battle, there is only one day of rest. Usually, Qiyu Fiend Ancestor will not return to his world. I can ask the Destiny Astral Ancestor to come over and help me during the battle. Fortunately, it was the Ranking God battle now, and Qiyu Fiend Ancestor was not in Xueqi Demon Region. Long Chen discussed this matter with the ancestral gods of the Fourth Era. They were not as wary of Qiyu Fiend Ancestor as Long Chen was. During the next break in the battle, the Destiny Astral Ancestor arrived near Xueqi Demon Region. Qiyu Fiend Ancestor has fought more than a dozen battles and has not returned. If he returns, someone will inform us. Now is the best time. Let's go in. The only thing is, why did your ancestral dragons hide all the world sources here? I don't understand either. Although he did not understand, this did not affect Long Chen from obtaining karma. The constellation progenitor said no more and led Long Chen in. After passing through the ancient Xueqi demon diagram, Long Chen easily arrived above the Xueqi demon region. Go and search. Don't worry, you have plenty of time. It's just that I can't stay here for too long, so as not to arouse suspicion. When you want to come out, just tell me, and I'll be right there. As for Qiyu Demon Ancestor, we will keep an eye on him. We will never let him know that you are in his Xueqi Demon region. No problem. After that, the fated astral ancestor left, and Long Chen began to search in peace. What he was looking for was something that was similar to the righteous path of the human world. It could be a road, a river, or even a lightning-like crack on a house. It could also be a crack on a corpse that was buried deep in the ground. Anything was possible. Therefore there was no shape. The difficulty of karma was more difficult than time and life. And it was much more difficult. Life was the simplest. Long Chen found the grass easily. 1 day, 2 days. The more time passed, the more depressed Long Chen became. In fact, after 5 days, he had basically understood the entire Xueqi demon region. In fact, it was not that there was nothing that Long Chen was looking for, but that there were too many similar things. The key was that Long Chen checked all the similar things carefully, but they were not the karma that he was looking for. Impossible, the righteous path in the human world will not be wrong. It must be in the Xueqi demon region. Long Chen did not give up. After all, Qiyu Demon Ancestor had not returned, and there was still some time. Now he had to thank this ranking battle. If it were not for this ranking battle, he would not have so much time. However, what was even more depressing was that after 10 days, Long Chen had almost turned the entire place upside down, but he still could not find karma. There were thousands of similar things, but none of them were real. Long Chen even checked the cracks on the gravel, but there was nothing. His understanding of the entire Xueqi demon region might even surpass that of Qiyu Demon Ancestor himself. How can there be nothing? Impossible. He absolutely believed in the God Dao heart-refining dragon's advice. However, there was nothing. No matter how Long Chen searched, he flipped through the gravel several times. He even searched the veins on an ant, but there was no karma. The entire Xueqi demon region seemed to be against Long Chen. Still nothing? The primordial war ancestor was getting anxious. After all, the points battle was about to end. Once it ended, there would be a break before the final battle. During that time, Qiyu Demon Ancestor would definitely return. At that time there would be no chance. Besides, the final battle could be settled in a day. Nothing. That's strange. Let me confirm one last time. The God Dao heart-refining dragon's guidance can't be wrong. Alright, but don't drag it out for too long. Now is a sensitive time with the other party. Such behavior will provoke conflict between both sides. Long Chen naturally understood. That was why he was so cautious. Even if Qiyu demon ancestor was not around, he could not make too big of a move. He continued to search. This time, he calmed his mind and searched again. He considered the most minute details, and even felt the wind of the entire world. But there was nothing. As if it had disappeared into thin air. Long Chen and the dragon servants were also communicating. If you really can't find it, then come out first. Don't mess up. Besides the righteous path of humanity, we might need other things to find karma. You may not be able to do it. Besides, the ranking battle is about to end. The origin dragon servant suggested. All right. In fact, Long Chen also understood this, but he was a little unwilling. The Destiny Astral Ancestor came over and took him away from the Jiuli Demon region, and then returned to the battlefield of the ranking battle. Looking around, it might be the final juncture. Every 5th era origin ancestor god looked a little tired. But for the onlookers, this was the most exciting moment. The top 8 had not been completely decided yet. The last few battles. The top 8 in terms of points had basically been confirmed. 2 or 3 of them have maintained a complete victory, while the others have only lost 1 or 2 battles. Among the 5th era origin ancestor gods, their strength is still relatively clear. Long Chen looked at the rankings. The top few names were all familiar to Long Chen. Among them, the 3 with complete victories were Ancestor God Pangu, Ancestor God Hongjun, and the last one was Qiyu Demon Ancestor. Who would have thought that he was so strong? The others, such as Ancestor God Hun Kuan, Ancestor God Lu Ya, Divine Ancestor Ling Yuan, were all within the top 8, and had only lost 1 battle. They were relatively stable in the top 8. The people Long Chen cared about had good results, so he was more relaxed. He did not feel much urgency. I don't know who arranged for such a battle to happen. It was probably arranged randomly, and no one thought too much. Also, no one expected Qiyu Demon Ancestor to win a complete victory. Primordial War Ancestor said, "What's wrong?" In the last battle of the ranking battle, Panga's opponent is Qiyu. Both of them have complete victories. Even if they lose, they can still enter the top 8. Therefore, this battle is meaningless. They should have met in the final battle, which would have been more exciting. Now that they have met, it can only be said that the excitement of the final battle has decreased. Perhaps the most exciting battle has been brought forward. Ancestor God Pangu and Qiyu Demon Ancestor? Both were ancestor gods who had complete victories in the ranking battle. It was certainly not easy to come this far. According to the expectations of the crowd, they should have met in the final battle. That would have been exciting. Now that the battle had been brought forward, it was meaningless. Will one of them admit defeat and fight in the final battle? Long Chen asked. He also felt that it was meaningless to fight now. One was someone he supported, while the other was someone he hated. Probably not. Complete victory is a kind of glory. With Qiyu Demon Ancestor's personality, it's impossible. His demonic aura is overwhelming. Perhaps he can't help but want to fight Pangu. As for Pangu, although he's honest, he's not someone who is willing to admit defeat easily. Forget it. There's no harm in bringing forward the battle. The loser might have a chance to counterattack in the final battle. Indeed. However, because of the appearance of this battle, the point battle has become popular ahead of time. Right now, I reckon that everyone is waiting for the arrival of this battle. As expected, everyone's eyes were filled with enthusiasm. They were discussing Ancestor God Pangu and Qiyu Demon Ancestor. Chapter 35-49. Ancestor God Pangu and Demon Ancestor Qiyu are both proficient in the nomological laws of power. Both are the source of power for all worlds, but Ancestor God Pangu is compassionate and compassionate. He holds the power of righteousness and lives for the sake of all life. As for Demon Ancestor Qiyu, he wields the power of the demonic Tao. He and Ancestor God Pangu each have their own merits. Who do you think will win? Of course. I don't know either. I just think that Ancestor God Pangu is more majestic and ancient. He's slightly better than Demon Ancestor Qiyu. Although the two hadn't clashed yet, almost all the creator gods were discussing them. This battle that should have only appeared at the last moment had actually appeared in advance. It might even happen twice. It was a feast for the eyes. Long Chen naturally hoped that ancestor god Pangu would defeat demon ancestor Qiyu. In the blink of an eye, this battle had arrived. The fourth era's ancestor gods had deliberately arranged for this battle to be the last. Once the battle ended, it meant that the fifth era's ancestor god point battle was over. The 10 battlefields merged into one. The 17 fourth era's ancestor gods stood guard outside the battlefield. There was enough space for them to fight. Even if there wasn't enough space, the fourth era's ancestor gods could control the situation. Of course, Pangu and Qiyu were the closest to the fourth era's ancestor gods. Enter. Amidst the anticipation of the crowd, the gentle, kind, and majestic ancestor god Pangu transformed into a beam of brown light and appeared in the center of the battlefield in the blink of an eye. At the same time, a beam of demonic aura pierced through from the north. As it moved, thousands of demons roared and countless ghostly figures accompanied it. The ox-headed, four-armed demon ancestor Qiyu also arrived on the battlefield and stared at the majestic Pangu. His eyes were blood-red, and his battle intent surged. Naturally, he didn't have any intention of admitting defeat. Instead, he was filled with anticipation and fervor. Boom! Before the battle even began, the collision of auras and vibrations produced violent shockwaves that shocked everyone. Many of the more astute creator gods couldn't help but retreat. Their intuition told them that they should protect themselves while the two ancestor gods fought. Under the collision of the two origin forces, Long Chen could feel the violent power of the two ancestor gods. They were the only ones in their world. This heaven-defying power is still far superior to mine. If I want to defeat demon ancestor Qiyu, I still need more than 10,000 years of cultivation. I still need more of the ancestral dragon world's origin dragon soul. For some reason, perhaps it was because the Qiyu demon ancestor had a strong enmity towards him. Therefore, Long Chen also felt a strong sense of enmity towards him. Neither Patriarch Pangu nor Patriarch Qiyu were talkative people. When the fourth era's ancestral god had just announced the start of the battle, the two of them had almost simultaneously used their techniques. The two ancestor gods were burly and muscular individuals. Their blood qi was exuberant and their primordial divine bodies were filled with a primordial heaviness. His flesh and blood were like the ultimate steel, and within his flesh and blood, there was a divine power that could shake all worlds. In the eyes of the creator gods, they were like demon beasts in human form, constantly expanding and transforming. In the blink of an eye, 2-3 million-meter-tall giants appeared in front of everyone. They were boundlessly huge, comparable to the 9-colored chaos giant transformed by the chaos ancestral god. However, after the two transformed into 3 million-meter-tall giants, their divine bodies still did not change shape. It was as if it was not them who had become bigger, but the entire world had shrunk. Everyone. Even so, the battlefield was actually enough for them. However, the fourth era's ancestor gods still needed to protect them. Therefore, they built a large array together and placed the two super ancestor gods in a spherical area, allowing them to fight to the death. Within the array, the auras of the two supergiants were thick, and their power caused the array to tremble. Earthy yellow fog spread out and clashed with demon ancestor Qiyu's monstrous demonic aura, setting off intense clashes that produced sizzling sounds. Demon ancestor Qiyu's nomological rules seem to be called the Heaven, Earth, and Human three demon scriptures. Human demon, Earth demon, Sky demon, these three realms. I've seen him use human demon and earth demon before. They're pretty good. Before they fought, the primordial war ancestor sighed. At this time, Long Chen was listening. Regarding demon ancestor Qiyu's abilities, the most unforgettable memory for Long Chen was probably the punch he had given him after he had obtained time. That punch left a deep impression on him. Now, demon ancestor Qiyu controlled the roiling demonic aura. The demonic aura turned into clouds that tumbled beneath his feet. In a short time, his huge divine body charged in front of ancestor god Pangu. His body was surrounded by a layer of white light. Within the light membrane, there were trillions of light spots. Within each light spot was a living being, a person. A demon that was as cold and ruthless as a demon. Innocent human demon. Trillions of light spots gathered on demon ancestor Qiyu's arm, forming a fist. The fist surged with demons and was extremely domineering. Trillions of lives were swept up, bringing with it immense power. With his million-meter-tall giant body, he violently pierced through ancestor god Pangu. All the surrounding worlds exploded one by one, producing countless fragments that danced in the sky. Long Chen felt nervous as he watched them charge at each other. At that moment, ancestor god Pangu showed no fear. He opened his palms, one hand rising with the back of it facing the sky, while the other lowered with the back of it facing the ground. Between his palms, an incomparably huge, real, ancient world was born. Within it, lightning flashed and thunder roared. All living things tumbled, hurricanes howled, flames shot into the sky, mountain floods erupted, and volcanoes surged. The real world was born, and living beings could live within it directly. Pure yang to the sky, turbidine to the earth. From then on, pure yang was the sky, turbidine was the earth, and heaven and earth was born. The newly born world, under the release of ancestor god Pangu, instantly charged forward, colliding violently with ancestor god Pangu's innocent human demon. Trillions of human demons charged into the newly born world, tearing it apart with their hands and fangs. Within ancestor god Pangu's rule world, everything began to compress. The wind and clouds churned, and all living things were destroyed. Billions of human demons died tragically, their souls destroyed, their bodies crushed by the world, their bones broken, and they howled. Boom! Human demons and heaven and earth were destroyed together. The 2-million-meter-tall giants retreated, looking slightly disheveled. However, this also meant that they were actually about the same level. Of course, the two peerless ancestor gods would not be satisfied with the current level. After the collision, they immediately continued to fight. However, it was only at this time that their true essence of the world was revealed. On ancestor god Pangu's side, he held an ancient great axe in his hand. It was rusty and ancient like a mountain, and even the edge of the axe was chipped, full of traces of the corrosion of time. There was even moss growing all over it, and from a distance, it looked like it would break at any moment. But Long Chen and the others knew that was not the case. This great axe was called Genesis Splitter, and it was the root of Pangu continent and ancestor god Pangu. Be it all living beings or Pangu, they all originated from this Genesis Splitter. Only when he wielded this Genesis Splitter, with his hand could Pangu be considered complete. On the other side, Qiyu Fiend Ancestor had a total of 4 arms, and now, weapons had appeared on all 4 of them. They were 4 divine weapons, all pure black, and covered with fiend runes. They were surrounded by countless ghosts, and the fiend aura was even stronger. These 4 fiend weapons were a saber, a spear, a sword, and a halberd. Among them, the left upper arm was a saber, the right upper arm was a sword, the left lower arm was a spear, and the right lower arm was a halberd. Qiyu Fiend Ancestor was proficient in saber, spear, sword, and halberd. These 4 weapons were the true essence of his world. Each of these divine weapons possessed limitless power, and they were like devils that had slept for countless eras, ferocious and terrifying. The name of this world's essence was 10,000 Fiends. Genesis Splitter. Against 10,000 Fiends. As soon as the 10,000 fiends moved, layers upon layers of fiend shadows appeared. The world origin had been unleashed. For the 2 of them, perhaps this could be considered a true battle. In an instant, their formations shook even more violently. Their array diagram shook even more violently. Even the 4th epoch's primordial ancestral gods had to expend a lot of effort to control the situation. I have to say that these 2 ancestral gods are really powerful. Seeing this, Long Chen could not help but sigh with emotion. He was also thinking about the gap between him and them. In this way, the Tower of Time has been a great help. Otherwise, it would have taken me at least 10,000 years to catch up with them. Xiao Lang has lost his freedom for so long, that won't do. Chapter 3550. Xana Earth Fiend. The 2 strength-type creator gods clashed even more intensely. For example, Fiend Ancestor Qiu's pitch-black body had turned completely silver, turning him into a gigantic silver fiend. Even the world's origins in his hand had turned silver. Within Xana Earth Fiend's laws, it had turned silver. Silver light flashed as sword chi, saber chi, and spear aura clashed violently, annihilating everything around them. Fiend Ancestor Qiu's speed increased infinitely as he transformed into countless silver beams that engulfed Pangu. Instantly it was a killing blow. Ancestral god Pangu was still able to remain calm in the face of such a killer move. He closed his eyes and held Genesis Splitter with both hands. With an ancient and heavy voice, he said loudly, "All things are illusory. Only strength can break them." Therefore, no matter where Fiend Ancestor Chio's myriad fiend saber, spear, sword and halberd were, he did not care. He only cared about the gigantic axe in his hand and instantly cleaved down. In that instant, it was truly Genesis Splitter. The entire world was collapsing. Genesis Splitter. The Genesis Splitter was a scene of chaos. The chaotic power swept out from the giant axe. The area controlled by the Fourth Era ancestral gods was now under the control of ancestral god Pengu. In that instant, everything was annihilated. Countless clouds tumbled as countless forces clashed. Fiend Ancestor Chio's Xana Earth Fiend was nearly enveloped. Just from this aspect, the Fourth Era ancestor gods could tell that ancestral god Pengu's laws were stronger, more righteous, and more majestic. Therefore, Fiend Ancestor Chiyu was suppressed by the Chaos Splitter at the Genesis Splitter. Only in the surroundings could the gigantic axe cleave down on his head. Dang! Instantly, he used his saber, spear, sword, and halberd to block Fiend Ancestor Chio's gigantic axe. It was a pure clash of weapons. A clash of pure strength. The power of the Genesis of heaven and earth gathered in the giant axe, and the Xana earthly devil swam among the sabers, spears, swords, and halberds. The collision between the world and the devil was once again set off. However, this time, ancestor god Pengu was even more powerful. In the most violent collision, the power of the Genesis of heaven and earth shattered billions of Xana earthly devils and bombarded Chiyu demon ancestor. Chiyu demon ancestor was sent flying, and he slammed into the design set up by the Fourth Era ancestor gods. The impact caused the entire design to shatter. Boom! After Fiend Ancestor Chiyu hit the array diagram, he was sent flying. Amidst the tremors, the frail ancestral gods behind the Fourth Epic's ancestral gods were sent flying. Although the tremors had nothing to do with them, they still felt as though they were caught in a storm. The direction in which Fiend Ancestor Chiyu had struck was in front of Long Chen. Therefore, Long Chen could sense it more clearly. Fortunately, there was Primordial Battle Ancestor beside him, allowing him to be safe and sound. Countless creation ancestor gods cried out in alarm. Amidst their cries of alarm, Fiend Ancestor Chiyu and ancestor god Pengu clashed once more. They only believed in the collision of the strongest power. Therefore, at this time, under the situation where Chiyu demon ancestor was defeated once, he became even crazier and more violent. His anger soared to the heavens and shook the universe. Of course, ancestor god Pengu was like a towering mountain. No matter how Fiend Ancestor Chiyu shook him, he did not move at all. But once they were enraged, not many people could resist them. Ancestral god Pengu was such a person. Sinful heavenly devil. In the previous battle, no fifth epic creation ancestor god could force Fiend Ancestor god Chiyu to use this move. In that instant, Fiend Ancestor Chiyu completely turned into a pure gold that illuminated the world. Even his saber, spear, sword, and halberd transformed in the same way. But even so, Fiend Ancestor Chio's demonic aura was still overwhelming. It shocked the ages. Boom, boom, boom. Golden light illuminated the world, but it was completely drowned out by Fiend Ancestor Chio's golden demonic aura. A golden sun rose on the battlefield, but it was not radiant. Instead, it was bone-chilling. In the golden light, countless ghostly faces and ghosts wailed. It was as though thousands of demons were on a pilgrimage. And the only one who could truly bear all of this was ancestor god Pengu. Ancestor god Pengu was now in the golden world. Even his flesh and skin were enveloped in this golden demonic light. Not only that, the spiritual attack was even more powerful. Countless illusions pierced into his body like needles, even piercing into the world's origin source and affecting his ancestral soul. Whoosh! Fiend Ancestor Chiyu traveled billions of miles in an instant. The golden saber, spear, sword, and halberd in his hands traversed countless distances and pierced right in front of ancestor god Pengu. At this moment, ancestor god Pengu let out a cold snort. His voice was as loud as a bell as it slammed into Chiyu evil ancestor. With this cold snort, all the evil illusions dissipated. At this moment, Pengu's heaven-splitting earth-splitting sword was raised high up to meet Chiyu evil ancestor, who was controlling the evil heavenly devil. However, at the last moment, at the moment of the violent slash, ancestral god Pangu's godly body and the origin of the world suddenly increased by 10 times in a short period of time. At that moment, Qiyu fiend ancestor was only as tall as his calf. He was incomparably tiny. The so-called sinful heavenly devil had become an existence that was like a child in front of ancestral god Pangu. The universe of 10,000 worlds. The giant axe chopped down, not to destroy, but to create. The creation of heaven and earth after that. 10,000 worlds were born one by one. They piled on top of each other. When the creation of heaven and earth descended on the head of Qiyu devil ancestor, 10,000 worlds were formed. All of them suppressed the head of the evil heavenly devil. Break! Qiyu evil ancestor brandished his saber, spear, sword, and halberd as he clashed with the giant axe. It was another clash of the purest strength. Rumble! At this moment, the rumbling was unprecedented. The previous clash had already broken through the defenses of the fourth epoch's ancestral gods. And now, the ancestral gods were suppressing once again, protecting everyone. This level of strength is inconceivable. Long Chen was also extremely shocked. However, the outcome had to be decided at this moment. This was because at this moment, they were all using their full strength. Of course, only those at Long Chen's level and above could see through the countless illusions and directly see the center of the battlefield. They could see the intense clash between the creation of heaven and earth-splitting sword and the evil heavenly devil. Wang! Crackle! At the moment the origin of the worlds collided, lightning flashed and thunder roared. With a powerful reverberation, the entire battlefield, world, and cosmos were completely destroyed. The heavens and earth weakened, and all things were annihilated. Kacha! Qiyu evil ancestor cried out in pain. Flesh and blood splattered from his forearms as they shattered inch by inch, turning into flesh and blood that filled the sky before vanishing. Under the most ferocious clash of the universe's myriad worlds, the golden divine body was now riddled with countless cracks. Blood oozed out from them like the ground. It collapsed like a volcano was about to erupt. Upon seeing this scene, Long Chen, all the ancestral gods of the fifth epoch, and even the ancestral gods of the sixth epoch, could see that ancestral god Pangu had defeated Qiyu evil ancestor. Ancestral god Pangu was indeed stronger than Qiyu evil ancestor. Just in terms of strength, he naturally crushed his opponent. Qiyu evil ancestor was indignant. However, ancestral god Pangu was like a towering mountain, while he was only a ferocious beast in the mountain. Even if he was ferocious, he could not shake the mountain. Now that the mountain had collapsed, Qiyu evil ancestor crumbled inch by inch under the suppression. Upon seeing this, Long Chen was delighted. Ancestral god Pangu was overjoyed. However, even though Qiyu demonic ancestor was defeated, he still had no intention of stopping. He continued to resist with all his might. This caused the suppression of the Qian Kuan world to exceed its limit. Under the creation of heaven and earth, not only did Qiyu demonic ancestor shatter inch by inch, but even the origin of the world, the myriad demons, could not withstand it and started to crack. If Qiyu evil ancestor continued to resist stubbornly, he would definitely be reduced to ashes. However, no one could stop him. He gritted his teeth and resisted with all his might. He admitted that he was not a match for the fourth epoch's ancestral god, but as a fifth epoch's ancestral god, he was unwilling to admit defeat. Admit defeat. Otherwise, you will die and implicate the Jiuli life forms. Ancestral god Pangu said with a resounding voice. Impossible. Qiyu evil ancestor's eyes turned blood red as he resisted violently. The result was that the source of the world crumbled one after another. Before long, he would perish, and even the Jiuli fiend region would vanish. This was a world that all the ancestral gods did not wish to see. Boom! Chapter 3551. The universe and myriad realms crushed the evil heavenly demons. Such a scene. It was earth-shattering. Ancestor god Pangu's laws had already reached a level that was extremely close to the fourth era's ancestor god Pangu. Even the fourth era's ancestor god Pangu couldn't help but exclaim when he saw this level of suppression. While the demon ancestor Qiyu wasn't weak, he had undoubtedly become the loser in this battle. Moreover, he had lost to the ancestor god Pangu head-on. At this moment, when ancestor god Pangu crushed his opponent, victory was more or less decided. All the creator gods couldn't help but cheer. An uproar echoed across 10,000 worlds. Long Chen suddenly had a bad premonition. At this moment, in order to prevent the universe from destroying the origin of the Qiyu demon ancestor's world, Ancestor God Pangu withdrew the crushing force of the universe at the critical moment. At this moment, when the Qiyu demon ancestor was on the verge of collapse, he obtained a chance of survival. He should be grateful. But at this moment, in a trance, Long Chen felt a kind of malevolence in his heart. He had a kind of obsession with combat, and he had a strong desire for unlimited strength. Obtaining first place in the Fifth Era's ranking god battle was what he desired the most. This was the battle of contribution points. To him, losing at this time was something he could not accept. 10,000 demon-killing aura. The Qiyu fiend ancestor had calculated very well. He knew that his opponent would definitely retract his rule power attack before killing him. That would be his chance. Sure enough, Pangu did it. In an instant, a terrifying law fluctuation swept out. Malevolent demonic energy transformed into millions and millions of malicious spirits. Blood energy surged into the heavens, adhering to his crumbling world essence. The saber, spear, sword, and halberd were all filled with the baleful energy of 10,000 devils. This baleful aura was so terrifying that it could be said that it had never been seen before. Demon ancestor Qiyu had definitely been preparing for this moment for a very long time. In the instant that elder god Pangu retracted his laws, he had unleashed an astonishing attack. In an instant, his saber, spear, sword, and halberd tore through everything. The saber and sword cleaved down on Genesis, while the spear and halberd pierced straight through elder god Pangu's enormous body, piercing right through. The endless fiendish aura transformed into billions of poisonous snakes and surged into ancestor god Pangu's body. In an instant, the fiendish aura filled up every single particle in his body and seeped into the deepest part. At the same time, the saber and sword stabbed into the crack in the Genesis splitter. It was nothing, but the fiendish aura of 10,000 devils swarmed in, filling the most mysterious depths of the world's essence like a sky full of locusts, rushing into the world's essence and even seeping into the ancestral soul. Ha! After succeeding, demon ancestor Qiyu retreated explosively, escaping from the range of ancestor god Pangu's counterattack. Although he was also injured, it was not a big deal. 5,000 kilometers away from ancestor god Pangu, he could not help but roar with laughter. I'm sorry. I won. Now that you've been struck by my 10,000 demonic baleful qi, you've completely lost your ability to fight. Within 10,000 years, no law can expel my 10,000 demonic baleful qi. Although you're still in the top 8, with your current situation, it's obvious that you won't be able to participate in the 5th epoch's ancestral god battle. Even if you participate, you'll be at the bottom. You are not a match for me, the Qiyu fiend ancestor. When ancestor god Pangu let go and demon ancestor Qiyu took the opportunity to counterattack, all the creation ancestor gods could not help but exclaim. However, this could not change the gods' expression. Everything happened in a split second. Even the 4th epoch's ancestral god could not stop it in time. Not to mention Long Chen. Now, demon ancestor Qiyu had even said such words. His shamelessness, ruthlessness, and ferocity had clearly been displayed without a doubt. Especially that face and posture of his laughing maniacally, it really made one want to rush up and slaughter him. It had been hidden for a long time, showing how terrifying this 10,000 demonic baleful qi was. Among the 17 4th epoch's ancestral gods, there was no expert who was adept at healing like the Tai Chi life-form dragon. Originally, the primordial infinite world-purifying celestial ancestor was adept at expelling evil and purifying everything. However, the problem was that Lingxi was still at the 6th epoch's ancestral god level. She was not strong enough. On the other hand, ancestor god Pangu's current situation was that he was standing still. The 10,000 fiendish qi on his ancestral god body had already seeped into every single particle of his body. It completely controlled his divine body and absorbed his flesh and blood essence, constantly plundering. Ancestor god Pangu's recovery ability could only ensure that his divine body did not wither under the plundering of the 10,000 fiendish qi. As for Genesis Splitter, the strange and terrifying power of the 10,000 fiendish qi had deeply seeped into it. Not only did it contaminate the origin of the world, but it also contaminated the origin energy of the world, making it difficult to use. It had to constantly resist the 10,000 fiendish qi. Moreover, the 10,000 fiendish qi had even attacked his ancestral soul. With the 10,000 fiendish qi attacking his heart, his physical body and divine soul suffered such a blow at the same time, causing ancestor god Pangu to sink into a vegetative state. Of course, this was all caused by demon ancestor Chio's despicable behavior. If not, ancestor god Pangu would have already finished him off. Relying on the instant that others spared his own life to attack was simply despicable. Ancestor god Pangu. Long Chen and some of the Fourth Era's progenitor gods had already arrived beside ancestor god Pangu. Demon ancestor Chio's laughter was extremely ear-piercing. Most likely, many people wanted to beat him up. As far as the eye could see, one could see many eyes filled with righteous indignation. It could be said that all of the creator gods present had seen the details of this battle quite clearly. The most important thing right now was to help ancestor god Pangu recover. Instantly, the Fourth Era's progenitor gods arrived. Some of them, such as the primal chaos ancestor god, tried to investigate, but they discovered that demon ancestor Chio's 10,000 fiendish chi was truly impossible to expel. At the very least, it was very difficult. It would take a certain amount of time. Long Chen used his Taiji life form to give it a try. He was even able to repair the world essence. Even his Taiji life form was unable to expel the 10,000 fiendish chi. The 10,000 fiendish chi had split into trillions of strands and penetrated deep into ancestor god Pangu's world essence and body, virtually fusing with them. Although ancestor god Pangu's vitality wasn't severely damaged, the crux of the matter was that it was like a lingering ghost that wouldn't dissipate at all. It was truly not easy to completely remove it. Demon ancestor Chiyu, hurry up and expel the 10,000 fiendish chi. After some observation and understanding the principle, the Fourth Era's progenitor gods understood that only demon ancestor Chiyu could completely expel it. No one else could. Unexpectedly, demon ancestor Chiyu actually laughed and said, "How is that possible? It wasn't easy for me to injure him. Don't you all understand that even in the final battle, he will still be a huge opponent for me to win the championship? Today, I won the battle and even dealt a heavy blow to him. What reason do I have to allow my opponent to recover? Could it be that I want him to defeat me in the final battle?" The moment these words were said, there was an uproar. Long Chen never thought that demon ancestor Chiyu would be so ferocious. To be honest, this was too despicable. It was completely the behavior of a despicable person. You won today? Ancestor god Pangu used the Qian Kuan myriad world to suppress you and almost took your life. However, he was benevolent to you and didn't want to destroy your Jiuli demon territory. That was why he stopped and spared you. I didn't expect you to be so shameless. You actually attacked the moment he spared you. If this kind of victory was considered a victory, all the ancestor gods in the world would laugh their heads off. To be honest, Long Chen was very angry at the moment. He was angered by demon ancestor Chio's shamelessness. Recently, he realized that demon ancestor Chiyu had no bottom line. What kind of joke is this? I was already prepared to counterattack. Even if he didn't stop at that time, I could still make him end up like this. I, demon ancestor Chiyu, have no intention of letting him go. I'm afraid he knew that he would lose, so he used this method to put me in an unjust position. Demon ancestor Chiyu had already prepared an excuse. Even if everyone knew the truth, he didn't blush or his heart didn't palpitate. After all, he had the ancestor gods supporting him. We'll talk about the outcome later. Get rid of the 10,000 demonic ominous energy first. Chaos ancestor god was a little impatient. Demon ancestor god of the Fourth Era gave the order, but demon ancestor Chiyu still had a cold expression. He said, "That's impossible. I spent so much effort to severely injure him. How can I let him be unharmed? What if he defeats me in the final battle? I definitely won't do such a thing, unless it's after the final battle." Don't worry, the 10,000 demonic ominous energy can't kill him. At most, it will make him perform abnormally. If I slowly peel it off, it will be enough even if I spend 10,000 years. Chapter 3552. As expected, at this moment, 7 Fourth Era ancestor gods came to Chiyu demon ancestor's side. Among them were Chaos Whole Ancestor, Mortal People Emperor Ancestor, Saint Ancestor Kitagarbha, and Xueqi Demon Ancestor. Mortal People Emperor Ancestor smiled. "It's just a small matter. Don't be so serious. First of all, I think Ancestor God Pangu did something meaningless in the previous battle. Qiyu demon ancestor still had some strength left. Before we announced the end of the battle, he chose to hold back. Qiyu demon ancestor could only use his remaining strength to attack. After all, he had the confidence to break it. Ancestor God Pangu's mercy has trapped him in an unjust situation. In my opinion, this battle is Qiyu demon ancestor's victory. There is no doubt about it. The other fourth-era ancestor gods all said the same thing. Their words were more authoritative. Indeed, some of the creator gods would be misled by them and believe it. After all, they also felt that Qiyu demon ancestor wouldn't be so shameless, right? But the others still believed their own eyes. When Qiyu demon ancestor died, if ancestor god Pangu hadn't given up, he wouldn't have had a chance to fight back. Chaos Whole ancestor said, "To be honest, I think Qiyu demon ancestor's words make sense. He didn't have the responsibility to expel the 10,000 demon baleful energy. This is his achievement and plan. As for ancestor god Pangu not being able to recover before the battle, that is a problem of his own ability. I think it is unreasonable to force Qiyu demon ancestor to expel the 10,000 demon baleful energy." Although the truth of this matter was obvious, everyone had their own opinions. The crux of the matter was that the Fourth Era's ancestral gods were divided into two factions based on whether they were close to or distant from Long Chen. Other than the two Fourth Era's ancestral gods who were still wavering, one faction had 7 people, while the other faction had 8 people. This was a truly terrifying conflict. It was enough to shake the foundations of all worlds in the future. Chaos Whole Ancestors Group wanted to restrain Long Chen and prevent him from dominating all worlds in the future. They might even assassinate him or start a war. Primordial War Ancestors Group didn't want to have a head-on conflict with the other party. They wanted Long Chen to grow safely. Once Long Chen crushed them, the situation would be resolved. Therefore, today's conflict was not an issue between Ancestor God Pangu and Demon Ancestor Qiyu, but a conflict between the two parties. There was no reason for that. If the conflict continued, it would lead to a war between the two sides. To Long Chen's side, that was something they didn't want to see. Right now, they trusted Long Chen, and their future was built on Long Chen's shoulders. The founding demonic forefather had just joined in, and this was the first time he had spoken. Of course, he was only speaking to his allies. He said, "The other side has clearly made it clear that they want to seize this opportunity to start a conflict. The more intense the conflict, the happier they will be. They might even take advantage of the chaos to kill Long Chen. So, I think we should just forget about it. We just need to endure for a while. In the future, as long as Long Chen reaches his limit, we won't even need to fight." The demonic ancestor is right. Let's just endure this sort of pointless conflict if we can. Long Chen, don't be too angry. Right now, they can't wait for you to attack, said Ancestor God Fortune. Yes, no matter what happened today, their ultimate goal was still to deal with him. After thinking it through, Long Chen suppressed his anger. He said, "It doesn't matter who wins or loses. In any case, Ancestor God Pangu can enter the final battle. The key is recovery." How can Ancestor God Pangu participate in the final battle if the myriad devil baleful chi isn't removed? At this time, Ancestor God Pangu was resisting the myriad devil baleful chi and didn't even have time to speak. But Demon Ancestor Qiyu isn't willing. If he forces us, it will be a conflict, which is disadvantageous to us. Ancestor God Primordial Chaos said. The 8 Fourth Era's ancestor gods had the same goal. Clashing with them now would only destroy the foundation of the myriad worlds, and even lead to a calamity. As long as they protected Long Chen until he became the 4th Era's ancestor dragon, they would have won. Once they clashed, it would instead give the other side a chance to win. Long Chen thought for a moment and said, "Just now, Demon Ancestor Qiyu said that Ancestor God Pangu can remove the myriad devil baleful chi in 10,000 years. I have a space that can accelerate the flow of time by 10,000 times. In other words, a year's time is enough. Then, we just need to extend the final battle a month later to a year." The 4th Era's ancestor gods had a certain understanding of this. They agreed with Long Chen's idea very much. In the end, Ancestor God Primordial Chaos said, "Since Demon Ancestor Qiyu is so insistent, we won't force him. However, we have to give Ancestor God Pangu a chance to recover. Therefore, I suggest moving the final battle to a year later. Let him have at least a year to resist the myriad devil baleful chi." Regarding the fourth floor of the Tower of Time, Long Chen naturally wouldn't let them know too much. I agree. On this side, all 8 of them instantly agreed. In fact, everyone could see that Long Chen and the others were being suppressed. Demon ancestor Qi Yu should have dispelled the myriad devil baleful Qi during the battle. Moreover, he should have lost the battle. Therefore, at this moment, the other 2 Fourth Era's ancestor gods who remained neutral exchanged a glance with each other and chose to agree. This was a gap of 10-7. Among the Fifth Era's ancestor gods, everyone could clearly see that the primordial war ancestor and the others had already gathered a batch of people. These people were the first to agree, and they had also pulled in many others. Everyone attached great importance to this ranking battle. Therefore, they were somewhat disdainful of demon ancestor Qio's behavior. Therefore, they basically agreed with the decision to move the final battle to a year later. This was the first time that Long Chen's side had crushed the other side by a large margin in the Ancestor God Alliance's vote. This meant that although the other side was arrogant and seemed to have gained an advantage, they had actually lost a portion of the people's support. More people favored Long Chen's side. This was also a counterattack to them. Since that's the case, I announce that the Fifth Era's Ancestor Gods' final battle will be moved to this day 1 year later. Actually, to the Ancestor Gods, a year was just an instant. Only to Long Chen, a year was 10,000 years. 10 years was 100,000 years. 100 years was 1,000,000 years. After the vote, Demon Ancestor Qi Yu still laughed and said, "You are really polite. Is there a difference from a month to a year? In a year's time, I reckon this loser can't even expel a 10,000th of my 10,000 fiend baneful aura. Even if he can barely enter the battlefield, he will come here to embarrass himself. If you propose 10 years or 100 years, I don't think it will be a problem." Haha. He laughed smugly again. His despicable ways were completely exposed today. Long Chen looked at Ancestor God Pangu, who was possessed by the 10,000 fiend baneful aura and unable to extricate himself. The rage in his heart rose to a whole new level. "If it's just to defeat you, a year's time is enough. Demon Ancestor Qi Yu." Long Chen suddenly said. Demon Ancestor Qi Yu was taken aback and asked, "Are you talking about you or that trash Pangu?" Long Chen smiled and could not be bothered to answer him. He knew that Demon Ancestor Qi Yu was powerful, but his answer was that it was not only Ancestor God Pangu, but also himself. Of course, the eyes of the masses were sharp. Today, everyone knew that Demon Ancestor Qi Yu was not a match for Ancestor God Pangu. Quibbling would only make him a laughingstock. Without further ado, Long Chen quickly bade farewell to the ancestor gods of the Fourth Era and transferred Ancestor God Pangu to the 4th floor of the Tower of Time. He could expel the aura on his own here, and the other ancestor gods could help him. In fact, it would take less than 10,000 years. After this battle, they would have to wait for a year. 1 year was just a blink of an eye. Therefore, many onlooking ancestor gods did not even bother to go back. Instead, they stayed here to watch the final battle. After today's feud, the final battle would definitely be more exciting. After returning to the 4th floor of the Tower of Time, Long Chen discussed with the other ancestor gods of the 4th Era. They all agreed that his greatest task was to improve himself. "If you need to find the ancestral dragon's inheritance, you can tell us at any time. As long as you find it, we will help you get it," they said. With their help, Long Chen was not worried that he could not recover to the peak state of the ancestral dragon. He cultivated in silence on the 4th floor of the Tower of Time, striving for a higher realm, the ancestor god realm of the 6th Era. As time passed, Long Chen felt that the good and evil lake and the message sent by the righteous path in the human world might be wrong. After all, he had been searching in the Jiuli demon domain for such a long time without any results. Chapter 3553. Of course he didn't approach. The 4th Era's ancestral gods had already added several layers of formations to the dragon sacrificial continent. The outermost layer, the Eternal Steel Divine Diagram, was the weakest. Further in, the other array diagrams could even block the attacks of the 4th epoch's primordial ancestral gods. These array diagrams were similar to the ones the ancestral gods had set up in their own worlds. It was clear how much they protected Long Chen. Therefore, in the current situation, as long as Long Chen stayed in the dragon sacrificial continent, he would be fine. Once the 4th Era's ancestral gods attacked and destroyed all the spell formations, the 8 Fourth Era's ancestral gods, who had clearly expressed their support for Long Chen, would have instantly arrived here through the death rain. Sometimes, the Fourth Era's ancestral gods would also wander around the dragon sacrificial continent. Fortunately, none of them were here this time. Demon ancestor Qiyu was lucky. He just stayed in the distance and didn't rush forward. His eyes locked on a syndicate dragon of the first ancestor dragon, which belonged to the 9th Era's destruction ancestral god realm. Then, demon ancestor Qiyu said, "Tell that Long Chen to come out. I have something very important to tell him, but make him keep it a secret. Otherwise, he will regret it for the rest of his life." The supreme dragon quickly passed the news to Long Chen. Hearing that it was demon ancestor Qiyu, Long Chen arrived at the eternal god realm. He wanted to inform the primordial war ancestor and the others directly, but demon ancestor Qiyu said to keep it a secret, so he held back. In the blink of an eye, he appeared here. Demon ancestor Qiyu was outside the dragon sacrificial continent, separated by several formations. When the two sides met, there was anger in their eyes. But demon ancestor Qiyu seemed to have won. After seeing Long Chen, he went straight to the point and said, "I know what you have been looking for recently, and I also know that it is actually in my Xueqi demon realm. And now you may not dare to believe it, but it is in my hands. Let me show you this crack." He casually stretched out his hand, and the all-encompassing power of origin formed a black lightning in his hand. What Long Chen found inconceivable was that it was exactly the same as the righteous path of the human realm. Of course, it was just the details. Karma is in his hands. This news was inconceivable to Long Chen. Therefore, when he heard this, he found it hard to believe. He only calmed down after a long time. He naturally believed that if not for this, the Qiyu demon ancestor would not have obtained it at all. During this period of time, demon ancestor Qiyu said, "The thing you want is in my hands. Of course, I'm not that stupid. I know that the 4th Era's primordial ancestor gods would even come to snatch it from me for you. But I'm sorry, it's not with me now. I've hidden it somewhere in the infinite worlds." 5 days later, this tiny existence will use the item I gave him to pass this information to one of the 7 ancestral gods, including the chaotic cave patriarch. At that time they will easily obtain what you want. Karma. The infinite worlds are so vast. You won't be able to find that location in 5 days. You won't be able to find that existence either. Of course, if you pass this information to anyone other than you, as long as I sense anything, I will directly pass the location to the 7 Fourth Era's primordial ancestor gods. You should know very well that once they obtain karma, you will never be able to obtain it again in your lifetime. They will not give it to you even if they die. They will even be willing to destroy it. In a very short time, demon ancestor Qiyu explained many things more clearly. How do you know it's karma? Long Chen was thinking. I guessed. Demon ancestor Qiyu said expressionlessly. It was not difficult to guess the divine Tao heart-refining dragon. Perhaps when he returned this time, he knew that Long Chen had gone to his Xueqi demon territory. No wonder he could not find karma in the Xueqi demon territory. It was because demon ancestor Qiyu had obtained it first. You underestimated my understanding of my world. After you found time and life consecutively, I was unconvinced and focused all my energy on them. Finally I gained something. Demon ancestor Qiyu sneered. Let me warn you again. Once you let the other 4th Era's primordial ancestor gods know about this, you will forever lose karma. Given how fragile karma is now, the chaotic cave ancestor and the others can destroy it. This was his threat. He definitely could not let the other 4th Era's primordial ancestor gods know about it. Even now, he did not want the chaotic cave ancestor and the others to know about it. Whether this was just his scheme or the entire group scheme, he didn't know. If it was only demon ancestor Qiyu, it would be easy to handle. If the chaotic cave ancestor and the others joined forces and wanted to use the temptation of karma to kill Long Chen, it would be troublesome. You can rest assured that this time, I acted on my own. You can choose to directly contact the chaotic cave ancestor and tell him about this. But the loss is that you will never get it, demon ancestor Qiyu said. After saying so much, what exactly do you want me to do? He had set up so many things and made such arrangements, so there must be a condition. It's very simple. You just have to follow me. And then be killed by you, and karma still won't be in my hands? Long Chen asked. Demon ancestor Qi Yu sneered and said, "That will depend on your ability. Karma is in my hands. If you want to obtain it, how can you not take risks? Now you have two choices. First, follow me and take the risk alone. You can't tell anyone. If you have the ability, karma will naturally be in your hands within these 5 days. Second, you can refuse. I'll give you about 2 days to consider. If you don't choose the first option, then karma will definitely be in the hands of the fourth era's primordial ancestor gods, and they will probably destroy it. I also want to know, if karma is destroyed, will your dragon sacrificial continent still exist? How many of these trillions of divine dragons will die?" This was a threat. Moreover, it was a heavy, despicable and shameless threat. Remember, this is your challenge alone. If the fourth era's primordial ancestor gods come to cause trouble, it'll be useless even if they capture me if they come. I know that the primordial soul ancestor is very good at searching memories, but once they appear, I'll immediately inform the chaotic whole ancestor and the others. Moreover, this time, I won't be easily searched. These were all time bombs thrown by the other party. Long Chen deeply understood that the real trouble had come. It wasn't just targeting him, but the entire dragon sacrificial continent. From the excitement and malevolence in demon ancestor Chio's eyes, perhaps this matter really had nothing to do with the chaotic whole ancestor and the others for the time being. This was demon ancestor Chio's private action. Everything he did was for himself. I can't tell the fourth era's primordial ancestor gods. If he really didn't tell them, it would be stupid. However, if they gave themselves away and were discovered by demon ancestor Qi Yu, it would be a huge problem. Let me think about it first. He stood in front of demon ancestor Qi Yu. In fact, he had already discussed with Lingxi and Li Xuanji. Li Xuanji said, "I suggest that we tell the fourth era's primordial ancestor gods about the whole matter, but we have to tell them not to act rashly for the time being. It'll be good if they can monitor the 7 over there. Once they make a move and head in a certain direction, they can still chase and entangle them through the death rain. As for what this demon ancestor Qi Yu wants to do, you might have to deal with it yourself." Lingxi also said, "Let them know that they have a plan. At the most critical moment, they might even come out to help. However, if they don't say anything, once there's a fatal crisis, the loss will be greater than karma." What they were thinking was also what Long Chen was thinking. However, he must convince the fourth era's primordial ancestor gods not to act rashly. Thus, Long Chen made a decision in his heart. As for the fourth era's primordial ancestor gods, he let Li Xuanji and Lingxi explain it clearly. At this moment, Long Chen had already made up his mind. He said, "I'll go with you. At least you know what's good for you. Don't worry, this time, your life and death are still in your hands. How you end up depends on yourself. Who asked me to discover that karma first?" After demon ancestor Qi Yu finished speaking, he laughed loudly and moved forward. As for Long Chen, he maintained a distance and followed behind him. If he suddenly attacked him, there was still room for resistance. "I think so too. Now it seems that he's looking for a place to kill you. However, with his plan, it's very likely that your death world won't be able to use that place. So, you really have to be careful. This time, it's really troublesome that the other party has something on you. Fortunately, if you were sent to the fourth era's primordial ancestor gods, you and we would definitely be in big trouble." Long Chen thought so too. Now, he could only see if he had a chance to snatch back karma from demon ancestor Qi Yu. Everything was ready. Long Chen kept following demon ancestor Qi Yu forward. Demon ancestor Qio's demonic qi was monstrous, as if he was accompanied by billions of malicious ghosts. He was extremely ferocious and difficult to approach. What's this guy up to? The front became more and more blurry, but the surroundings felt somewhat familiar. Soon, a huge object appeared in front of them, like a huge graveyard in the starry sky. Long Chen took a closer look. Wasn't this the tomb of Samsara? He had come to the tomb of Samsara several times before. It had happened several times before. Now, there were no more barriers between the infinite worlds, and the tomb of reincarnation had also descended upon the infinite worlds. However, the reincarnation's sacred tree in the tomb of reincarnation had disappeared, and the interior was empty. There was nothing to excavate. However, what was special was that once one entered the interior, it would be an independent space. Whether it was the life and death realms or the divine kingdom, everything was suppressed and could not be opened. It was even more sealed than the world in the Third Era's Yuan stone. Most importantly, it was completely sealed inside, and no information could be transmitted out. Even the communication between Long Chen and Li Xuanji would be cut off by the Tomb of Samsara. This was definitely the most crucial point. No wonder demon ancestor Qi Yu wants to place karma in a certain location in the myriad worlds and tell a mortal to come 5 days later. He sent a message to the black hole ancestral shaman and the others. He's worried that he'll be trapped in the tomb of Samsara. He can't directly notify the black hole ancestor and the others, so he's arranged an escape route, causing me to still be in danger. This is a problem. This demon ancestor Qi Yu is afraid that I have the support of the Fourth Era's ancestor god, so he wants me to enter the tomb of Samsara? This planning department was really good. Firstly, I won't be able to receive the instant support of the Fourth Epoch's primordial ancestor god. Secondly, he doesn't have to worry about me escaping. There are plenty of opportunities for him to kill me. Thirdly, once my reinforcements arrive, he can still use that mortal to threaten me. Fourth, he is the creator god. Even if I have reinforcements and threaten him with my life, he won't be afraid because he knows me very well. He knew that I would never destroy a world and all life in the world just to choose myself. So, no matter what, he would not die. With the Qi Yu fiend ancestor's personality, as long as he doesn't die, he probably isn't afraid of any punishment. How troublesome. How troublesome. Thinking of this, Long Chen knew that this demon ancestor Qi Yu must have prepared for a long time for such a thorough plan. Now, the two of them had already arrived at the entrance of the tomb of Samsara. No one could move this huge starry tomb away. Furthermore, the entrance wasn't big. At this moment, demon ancestor Qi Yu faced Long Chen and said coldly, "I'll go in first. However, I have to remind you that there are only 4 days left. If you still don't come in within 4 days, then karma and your dragon sacrificial continent will probably be gone. Of course, you can also choose to call all the Fourth Era's primordial ancestor gods to come in and torture me together, forcing me to reveal the whereabouts of karma. However, you can try and see if you can do it. Since I dare to come here, it means that I'm not afraid of anything. If that's the case, don't worry, karma won't be in your hands." This was a threat and a warning. In reality, when Long Chen saw the tomb of Samsara, he thought of a solution, and that was to let all the Fourth Era's primordial ancestor gods enter. There were still 4 days left. Long Chen didn't believe that he couldn't find the whereabouts of karma in this Qi Yu fiend ancestor's soul, especially with the existence of the ancestor of the original soul. However, it was obvious that demon ancestor Qi Yu naturally knew the pros and cons of the tomb of Samsara, so he warned Long Chen in advance. It seemed that he had the confidence to prevent such a situation from happening. This was a method that needed to be discussed. However, there was one thing that Long Chen had to know. He said, after saying so much, "How can I possibly obtain karma?" If it was impossible, there was no need for him to enter. He could just let the Fourth Era's primordial ancestor gods capture him, interrogate him, and search his soul. Demon ancestor Qi Yu said seriously, "There's only one way, and that is to convince me. From then on, that karma will be yours." "How can I convince you?" This was naturally completely out of the Qi Yu demon ancestor's expectations. However, there's only 1/9 of the space. This was because he had only settled the part of the primeval sacrificial dragon. However, it was obvious that he only needed to settle the other ancestral dragons. Next, he moved on to the ancestral dragon statues and dripped a drop of his inherited essence blood, making every divine dragon statue come to life, except for the destroyed chaotic heaven-devouring dragon. Only 1/9 of the space inside the tomb of Samsara was left under Long Chen's control. After controlling 8/9 of the space inside the tomb of Samsara, the remaining 1/9 was somewhat insignificant and would not affect Long Chen too much this time. Of course, the entire tomb of Samsara did not completely belong to Long Chen. Long Chen was still unable to completely transfer it to the dragon sacrificial continent, because there was still a 1/9 possibility that it was still under the control of the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon, and Long Chen could not bring it away. Of course, for today's big trouble, this huge change was simply enough. In this way, the space inside the tomb of Samsara is practically equivalent to my death world. I can make the fourth era's ancestral gods appear instantly, and I can also instantly appear at any location here, causing the Qiyu demon ancestor to lose most of the initiative. I can also leave at any time. The most important thing is that the Qiyu demon ancestor doesn't even know. This time, the Origin Dragon attendant had been a great help. Long Chen's heart was extremely excited. The trouble had not even started, and he had already gotten a turn for the better. This feeling was simply too refreshing. He hurriedly told this news to the fourth era's ancestral gods. At this time, the fourth era's ancestral gods were still calculating how to ensure that they could search for the Qiyu demon ancestor's memories. When they heard this news, they were naturally relieved of a heavy burden. In that case, you go in first and see what he has up his sleeves. Once there is any danger, we will all appear. At least your life is guaranteed. If you can't get that karma, then we can only control him together. The Chaos Ancestral Gods' thoughts were clear. Now that there was a way out and their lives were guaranteed, they decided that Long Chen would go first. If it did not work, then they would go. No problem. With a decision, of course they would go in as soon as possible. After all, they only had 4 days. It took them a day to get here. Long Chen had some understanding of the situation inside the tomb of Samsara. He controlled 80% of the space, and the Qiyu demon ancestor was in this 80%. He was resting with his eyes closed while waiting for Long Chen. There did not seem to be anything suspicious about him, and he did not seem to have made any arrangements. Seeing him, Long Chen thought of the Pangu ancestor god who had been ambushed by him. He still felt a great sense of disgust. In a flash, Long Chen entered the tomb of Samsara. The dim yellow world inside did not change. What changed was the connection between Long Chen and this world. This place was like his dragon sacrificial continent, and also like his life and death realms. He could freely change within this place, move anywhere, and control life and death, reverse yin and yang. He was everywhere, and there was nothing he could not do. Seeing his arrival, the Qiyu demon ancestor said word by word, "You really have guts. Qiyu demon ancestor, now you can clearly tell me how I can get my karma, right?" Long Chen asked directly from 1,000 miles away. "It's very simple. Just defeat me." The Qiyu demon ancestor was very straightforward this time. "Defeat me, and I will be completely convinced by you. I will naturally give you my karma with both hands." Long Chen had a premonition before, but he did not expect this to be what he wanted. He shook his head and said, "To be honest, I am now the 7th era's ancestral god, and you are the 5th era's ancestral god. There are 2 great eras between us. Even if I am an ancestral dragon and 3 ancestral dragons at that, the highest I can deal with is only at the level of Celestial Ancestor Yang Mei and Celestial Emperor Jade Emperor, which is equivalent to being born at the end of the 5th era. You, on the other hand, are one of the 3 strongest ancestral gods of the 5th era. I am worlds apart from you, and it is impossible for me to win in a head-on battle with you. It seems that the demon ancestor has no intention of giving me karma. I didn't want to give it to you in the first place. I just want to see if you have the guts to challenge this limit. It is because it is impossible that it is interesting, isn't it? Otherwise, why would I give you such a peerless treasure so easily? Can you give me a year's time? Impossible. If you reach the 6th era's ancestral god realm in a year's time, you will have a higher chance of defeating me based on your battle achievements. Then what is there to surpass the limit and challenge the impossible? What can be said? What I want is for you to defeat me in a situation where there is no hope at all. Otherwise, you can forget about karma. Of course, since you have come in now, don't think about leaving. Chapter 3556. Perhaps to the Qiyu demon ancestor, now that Long Chen had entered alone, he was like a turtle in a jar. Moreover, if Long Chen chose to give up, then the 4th era's ancestral gods would come. Time was limited, and he had to complete his plan before Long Chen gave up. Don't go! Unexpectedly, the Qiyu demon ancestor attacked at this time. Innocent human demon. The power of the 5th era's ancestral god. Long Chen had seen the terrifying power of innocent human demon with his own eyes. Back then, only Pangu ancestor god could resolve it. Among the many Fifth Era's ancestral gods, at least 80% of them were defeated by the Qiyu demon ancestors' rule. The human demon descended. Countless malicious spirits surrounded the demon god's body. That huge fist condensed a peak fist aura. Under the pressure, even the space inside the tomb of Samsara shattered endlessly. Break. Innocent. Human demon. This was the will of the Qiyu demon ancestor. He was fearless, extremely arrogant, and his demonic nature was unrivaled. His will and the power of origin of the world attacked together. To Long Chen, this was just the beginning, but it was already a devastating blow. 1. The entire world around him was filled with the Qiyu demon ancestor's demonic qi. Previously, when he obtained time, Long Chen was far from being a match for the Qiyu demon ancestor. He was crushed with a casual punch. Now, he was still under this irresistible pressure. However, in 2 different times, Long Chen's state of mind was not the same. At least, Long Chen had broken through. Since you want to fight, I'll accompany you. It was basically impossible to defeat him, but Long Chen also wanted to see if there was any chance to turn things around. Obviously, the Qiyu demon ancestor would not give him karma easily. Therefore, this might be the biggest problem that Long Chen had encountered in such a long time. He was like 3 Seventh Era's ancestral dragons working together to fight an opponent at the peak of the Fifth Era. 9 Death Slaughter Sword. Eternal Time Calamity Finger. Eternal Time Calamity Finger. 3 types of rules were displayed at the same time. The life quietus formed a forbidden zone that enveloped the Qiyu demon ancestor. Life was stripped away and the power of withering was like a tree growing on his body. However, the Qiyu demon ancestor's qi and blood were terrifyingly vigorous, enough to turn into a giant that was 100,000 feet tall. Even Long Chen's life quietus could not strip away much of his life force in a short period of time. At most, it was equivalent to tearing off a piece of flesh from his body. 9 gigantic divine dragons made up of blood-colored sword qi, as well as the swift and dazzling finger of eternal time calamity, collided with innocent devilman's fist force. What made Long Chen feel helpless was that his heaven-defying attack, which combined the 3 into 1, had torn Qiyu demonic ancestor apart in a very short period of time. Run. At this juncture, he could only skillfully use his control over the tomb of Samsara and try his best to dodge without the Qiyu demon ancestor noticing. Of course, his rules still blocked some of the attacks. Otherwise, one attack from the Qiyu demon ancestor would have turned Long Chen into ashes. Damn it! This Qiyu demon ancestor is so terrifying. Even dozens of me are not his match. How can I defeat him? Long Chen's expression was ferocious and nervous. He dodged continuously, but innocent devilman's attack still hit him. He flew backward, his flesh and blood shattered, and his body exploded. Even the source of the world showed cracks. Of course, if he was hit directly, that would probably be even worse. He would be turned into ashes directly. Long Chen did not want to reveal his control over the tomb of Samsara for now. That could be his last chance to turn things around. Actually, Long Chen had wanted to try it first to see if he had the ability to fight against the Qiyu demon ancestor. Of course, he had a strong desire to defeat the Qiyu demon ancestor. He would sweep away the humiliation of that punch. He would sweep away the hatred of ancestor god Pengu. He would even take revenge for that heavy injury. However, with the birth of the instant earth demon, Long Chen truly understood how terrifying the Qiyu demon ancestor was. He was almost the same as the 4th Era's primordial ancestor god. He was already standing in a position where he could absolutely crush Long Chen. The power of the instant earth demon could simply kill him in an instant. Momentary demon. Bas. The Qiyu demon ancestor suddenly threw out the saber, spear, sword, and halberd. Among them, the saber, spear, and sword stabbed at Long Chen's 3 source of the world. Obviously, he wanted to kill Long Chen instantly. Perhaps he really wanted to kill Long Chen at all costs. This made Long Chen suspect that the chaotic whole ancestor and the others had something to do with this matter. After all, they were the ones who wanted Long Chen dead the most. However, his intuition told him otherwise. The Qiyu demon ancestor was acting alone. In that case, why did he want to kill Long Chen? He could not figure it out. Super space-time killing sword. Exhausting all his strength, Long Chen used a domineering sword and a ferocious sword to collide with a momentary demon sword. However, no matter how much Long Chen used, the super space-time killing sword still shattered the other party. It could be said that it did not stop the other party at all. At that moment, a fatal crisis descended. Long Chen, danger. This was a fatal threat. In fact, Long Chen had not given up. He had been looking for a turning point. After persevering for so long, he could only hand everything over to the fourth epoch's ancestor god and the others. I still can't obtain karma by myself. Long Chen was very unwilling to accept this. However, there was no other way. It was definitely possible to defeat the Qiyu demon ancestor, but he still lacked 10,000 years of cultivation. He naturally remembered today's threat of death, but it was not over yet. Next, it would depend on the fourth epoch's ancestor god. At the last moment, Long Chen opened the Death Realm Dragon Gate. A 9-colored mist suddenly appeared in front of Long Chen. It was the Chaos Ancestor God. Go back. The Chaos Ancestor God had long asked Long Chen to let him out, but Long Chen still persisted, because he knew that since the Qiyu demon ancestor had made such preparations, he must have a way to prevent the fourth epoch's ancestor gods from oppressing him to obtain karma. Therefore, letting the Chaos Ancestor God appear was basically cutting off any hope of obtaining karma. If not for that, he would not have needed to persist at all. The Chaos Ancestor God appeared in a hurry, and with a jolt, all the sabers, spears, and swords were blocked and sent flying. However, because he appeared too late, the last divine weapon still passed through the Chaos Ancestor God and pierced through Long Chen. It stabbed into Long Chen's body, and the power of the instant earth demon erupted, which was also fatal. Fortunately, it did not harm the world's source. Taiji life body. At this time, Long Chen desperately recovered, resisting the eruption of the instant earth demon. Silver demonic chi swept through his body, bursting his flesh. Although his life was temporarily not in danger, the demonic halberd was still tumbling on his body. It was like a giant beast rushing into his body, and Long Chen could only hold it down. He desperately pulled out. Chaos Ancestor God. When he saw the Chaos Ancestor God appear, the Qiyu demon ancestor was shocked. What shocked him even more was that the primordial Chaos Ancestor God, the Creation Ancestor God, the Demonic Forefather Six Paths, the Destiny Star Forefather, the Founding Demonic Forefather, the Original Soul Forefather, and the Primordial War Forefather had all come out of the Death Realm Dragon Gate, and instantly surrounded the Qiyu demon ancestor. The Qiyu demon ancestor actually laughed out loud. Long Chen was completely immobilized by this terrifying rope. What is this? Not to mention this dark world, even this rope could temporarily seal Long Chen. The sudden unexpected change made Long Chen lose his cool at first. But in such a situation, he had no choice but to calm down. This was a moment of life and death. This is the fate-changing rope. The Qiyu demon ancestor was so excited that he was a little deranged. He gripped the rope tightly with both hands, as though he was worried that Long Chen would escape. What is it? Where did it come from? Logically speaking, Long Chen's knowledge clearly surpassed that of all the ancestor gods. He had even seen something like the smelting god cauldron before. But at this moment, he could not tell what the rope was. It was not the world quintessence, much less a destinable divine weapon. What it is isn't important. What's important is what use it has. Long Chen, you know that I'm jealous of you. You also know that even in my dreams, I want a chance to improve myself. Even if it means becoming a destruction ancestor god. As a creation ancestor god, it's just too hard for me to live a life with such strength. Perhaps there's an even higher existence. One day, I found this rope and learned of its use. Today, I will defy the heavens and change my fate. The Qiyu demon ancestor's hands trembled as he gripped the rope. His other two arms spread out as though he was cheering. What do you mean? Long Chen did not understand. How was he going to defy the heavens and change his fate? If he killed him, he would be able to defy the heavens and change his fate? That didn't make sense. At this moment, the Qiyu demon ancestor did not answer him. Instead, he waved the rope. Long Chen could sense that his end of the rope was like a snake, slithering across his body. Finally, it coiled around Long Chen's left arm, where Long Chen's world quintessence, time, was. In the previous battle, time had been coiling around his arm, but now, it had been instantly bound and controlled. The Qiyu demon ancestor laughed. It's not like I didn't give you a way out. You are still your ancestral dragon. Don't worry, you won't die either. You currently have the bodies of the primordial blood soul dragon, the Taiji life form dragon, and the void infinity dragon. Only the void infinity dragon is the third epoch's progenitor dragon. What I want is your void infinity dragon's divine body. Even at this point, Long Chen still didn't understand. He said, don't tell me you've gone mad. How are you going to obtain my divine body? This is the miracle you are about to witness. I can't wait any longer. The Qiyu demon ancestor laughed loudly. As he laughed, his world quintessence appeared once again. But this time, they merged into one, finally becoming a complete world quintessence. It was a black sphere, and within that sphere, one could vaguely see the sabers, spears, swords, and halberds from before. The Qiyu demon ancestor was just a world quintessence. Go! At this moment, the other end of the fate-changing rope was coiled around the black world quintessence. Its tail was like a long snake, sticking its head out and looking at the black world quintessence with hostility. Long Chen had a bad feeling about this. This guy was so mysterious. Could it really be that he could take away his void infinity dragon's body? If that was the case, how would it be achieved? Exchanging ancestral souls? This was too unimaginable. Even before the epoch, there was no such thing as exchanging ancestral souls. There was almost no possibility of it being achieved. But the Qiyu demon ancestor was so confident. He seemed to have full confidence. My ancestral soul. Indeed, at this moment, the other end of the fate-changing rope pierced into the Qiyu demon ancestor's world quintessence like a venomous snake. The seemingly weak rope actually pierced in and penetrated deeply. Before long, Long Chen saw the ancestral soul crawling out of the world quintessence along the rope. The ancestral soul was formed after the primordial spirit became an ancestral soul. It was sturdier and more primitive. The ancestral soul was in the form of the Qiyu demon ancestor. Its demonic aura was turbulent, and its vicious aura filled the sky. The ancestral soul's blood-red eyes stared coldly at its destination, which was Long Chen's time. Then, it actually followed the rope and crawled towards time. It should be known that all the creation ancestral gods, even the destruction ancestral gods, did not dare to bring the ancestral soul to the outside world. Firstly, they could not. Secondly, once they appeared, they would definitely face great danger. The ancestral soul did not have any resistance. Once it faced any threat, it would be reduced to ashes. No one would take such a risk. Moreover, without the world quintessence, the ancestral soul could not move at all. However, when the ancestral soul emerged from the world quintessence, the Qiyu demon ancestor's entire body was completely still. It was as if he was dead. Chapter 3558. After a period of very slow crawling, the Qiyu demon ancestor's soul finally crawled in front of Long Chen. You're afraid. The Qiyu demon ancestor's expression became even more excited. Long Chen was indeed frightened by this unimaginable method. But it was not fear. Instead, it was more puzzlement and mystery. Of course, he had a certain premonition of what was about to happen. When the Qiyu demon ancestor approached him, he was indeed afraid when he was unable to move. Fear of the unknown. Opposite him, the Qiyu demon ancestor lost his ancestral soul, and his flesh began to rot. Even the origin of the world began to crack. But the Qiyu demon ancestor did not care. By now, how could Long Chen not know that the Qiyu demon ancestor's true goal was to use this fate-changing rope to make the Qiyu demon ancestor's soul enter time, and pull out his own ancestral soul so that he could become a great void dragon? This was an unimaginable and unprecedented method. It completely exceeded Long Chen's imagination. If this continued, there was indeed a possibility that the Qiyu demon ancestor would snatch away his great void dragon body. Without the great void dragon body and that part of the ancestral soul, Long Chen would lose everything in time. However, this terrifying fate-changing rope was something that could defy the heavens. It bound everything. It would definitely ensure the Qiyu demon ancestor's success. Until now, I still don't know what this rope is. How can such a thing exist in this world? It seems like the Qiyu demon ancestor's true goal is to use karma to attract me. Moreover, he has made more preparations than I have. This fellow for this moment. Perhaps he has really waited for a long time. He dreamed of becoming himself, even abandoning everything that once belonged to the Qiyu demon ancestor, just to become the Third Era's great void dragon. From the Fifth Era to the Third Era, he had indeed profited, and he had almost destroyed Long Chen, whom the Chaos Whole Witch ancestor and the others were extremely afraid of. Qiyu demon ancestor. You will fail. Long Chen still had such confidence under such adversity. No matter how powerful this rope was, it was still an unorthodox method. Deep in his bones, he firmly believed that the Qiyu demon ancestor was not a divine dragon and could never become one. Don't provoke me. If things go smoothly, I will let you continue being the ancestral dragon. If you anger me, I will destroy the other two world origins of yours. The Qiyu demon ancestor said domineeringly with his ancestral soul. At this moment, he was already standing in front of time. Break for me. He commanded the heaven-defying fate-changing rope. The other end of the rope had been waiting like a tiger watching its prey for a long time, waiting for this news. At this moment, it used its domineering power, like a terrifying needle, to stab into the time of the world. Never before had such a huge crack appeared in the time of the world. At that moment, Long Chen felt a terrible piercing pain. The rope pierced through the blue world origin and even pierced Long Chen's time ancestor soul. This rope was truly the bane of Long Chen's existence. It could actually cause such pain to him. At that moment, Long Chen felt like his head was about to split open. As expected of the ancestral dragon. Even the world origins are different from ours. Although there are only 3 world origins, it is still terrifying enough. The Qiyu demon ancestor's eyes lit up. He had been waiting for this moment. It had been too long, and he could not wait any longer. When the rope broke through the time of Long Chen's world origin, the Qiyu demon ancestor did not say a word and rushed in. From today onwards, I, the Qiyu demon ancestor, am the great Voidian dragon. I am the 3rd epoch's ancestor dragon. The future myriad worlds will be controlled by me, the Qiyu demon ancestor. I am the #1 person in the myriad worlds. No, I am not the Qiyu demon ancestor. I, the great Voidian dragon, am the #1 person in the myriad worlds. All ancestor gods, listen to my command. The Qiyu demon ancestor was overjoyed. He wanted to destroy Long Chen's ancestral soul and replace it to become the master of time. As long as he controlled time, he could form a new body. As for his original body and everything else, he had already abandoned them. Piercing pain. Piercing pain. A feeling of his flesh being peeled off. Qiyu demon ancestor. Long Chen was burning with rage. But there was nothing he could do at this moment. He struggled with all his might. His slaughter and life were resisting, but he could not break through. The rope seemed to be designed to deal with him. The Qiyu demon ancestor was relying on the rope to destroy his ancestral soul in time. Under the intense pain and blurriness, Long Chen really felt a sense of despair. It was really unbearable. His opponent was a creator god. It was really disgusting. If not for that, Long Chen would have sworn to tear the Qiyu demon ancestor into pieces. Haha, I am the great Voidian dragon. I am the dragon of time and eternity. In this time, the Qiyu demon ancestor cheered and jumped. He was like a happy child. He split his ancestral soul into 3 parts and occupied the 3 world origins of Long Chen. As for the original Long Chen's ancestral soul, it had already been pierced through by the rope and was on its last breath. This was the reason why Long Chen was so weak and in despair. It had to be said that the Qiyu demon ancestor had basically succeeded. He used his ancestral soul to suppress Long Chen's time ancestral soul. He opened his 4 arms and directly touched Long Chen's ancestral soul, wanting to tear it apart. He laughed out loud, cheering for his heaven-defying change of fate. Chapter 3559. To be honest, a lot of time had passed. Chaos Ancestral God, Primordial War Ancestor, and the others were extremely anxious. If this went on, they would lose their sense of propriety. Fortunately, a surprise appeared in front of them. They had been too careless earlier, allowing the Qiyu archdevil ancestor to have his way. This time, when they saw that Long Chen was unharmed, they naturally wouldn't make the same mistake again. The moment the Qiyu archdevil ancestor appeared, the Grand Mist ancestor god made his move, freezing the Qiyu archdevil ancestor within the Grand Mist space. Qiyu demon ancestor's ancestral soul was injured and couldn't move, but he could still speak. However, in the tomb of Samsara, he couldn't tell Chaos Cave ancestor about karma. Long Chen, even if I fail, you still can't get karma, haha. Qiyu demon ancestor thought for a while. Even though he was afraid, irritated, and even in pain, he still wanted to take the initiative. Long Chen smiled. You're wrong. When our ancestral souls collided, I saw the most recent part of your memory. I saw the location of karma. Ancestral souls couldn't fight in the first place. When the two ancestral souls collided, Long Chen happened to see a portion of demon ancestor Qiu's memories. Back then, demon ancestor Qiu had been scared out of his wits by Long Yu and escaped without getting anything from Long Chen. Unfortunately, he didn't see the origin of the rope in Qiu demon ancestor's memory. What? Like being struck by a lightning bolt, Qiu demon ancestor widely opened his eyes as he stared at Long Chen. He remembered that when the ancestor souls collided with each other, he indeed saw all the fragments of Long Chen. However, as he was too scared at that time, he didn't even take a careful look at it before escaping away. All he saw was that Long Chen cultivated in the Tower of Time for a long time. You know the location of karma? The Fourth Era's primordial ancestor gods asked in surprise. Long Chen, what's going on? Everyone surrounded him. Everyone, please wait for a moment. To prevent any accidents, I will take away the karma first before returning here. Please do not let demon ancestor Qiu leave. I also have something to ask him. It wasn't easy for him to find the location of the cause and effect. Long Chen knew that things had to be prioritized. Naturally, it was more important to find the cause and effect as soon as possible. The location of karma was not complicated, but because it was too ordinary, and there were too many ordinary places in the myriad worlds, it was not easy to find it quickly. In the tomb of Samsara, Long Chen directly entered the Death Realm. Then, he exited the Death Realm's Dragon Gate, which was closest to the karma path. He flew in that direction, traveling hundreds of millions of miles in an instant. I really don't know how this demon ancestor Qiu found karma. He found a clue from the rules of the righteous path of the human world. Clearly, the Qiu demon ancestor did not know about the righteous path of the human world. About an hour later, he finally reached his destination. In an insignificant piece of broken star, Long Chen found a fruit. It was a very ordinary fruit, but it actually had two parts, gold and black. The connecting line in the middle was indeed the broken line of the righteous path of the human world. If demon ancestor Qiu hadn't found it first and hidden it, I would have been able to instantly lock onto it from the Jiuli demon territory. After finding this fruit, Long Chen indeed realized that it was more conspicuous than time, life, and massacre. It was no wonder that demon ancestor Qiu could find it first. Of course, it was because demon ancestor Qiu saw with his own eyes that Long Chen took away time and life, that he roughly knew what the ancestral dragon's world source was like. The 8 Fourth Era's primordial ancestor gods really gave the Qiu demon ancestor immense pressure, causing him to curl up and unable to move. Demon ancestor Qiu, you almost succeeded and became a great void cosmic dragon. This plan of yours is really thorough. Unfortunately, your nature is dark, and even evil. With your dirty ancestral soul, you are not fated to become an ancestral dragon. If you become the strongest person in the myriad worlds, the myriad worlds will really be in chaos. Knowing the truth, the Fourth Era's ancestor gods wanted to tear this guy apart, but they could not. After all, he was an ancestor god of creation. Moreover, the chaotic whole ancestor and the others were obviously protecting this guy. Ancestor gods could not be killed. The greatest punishment for attacking was eternal imprisonment. Long Chen was also very depressed about this. Why did the ancestor gods exist in the myriad worlds? Under the pressure of the Fourth Era's ancestor gods, demon ancestor Qiu lowered his head. Longchen said, I just want to know one thing. How did you get the fate-changing rope? This was the key. Until now, Longchen did not know where the rope came from, what it was, or why it had such an effect. Demon ancestor Qiyu raised his head and sneered. Isn't it simple? To tell you the truth, I found this in my Xueqi demon territory. As for what it is, I don't know. I am also very curious. Ever since I held this thing, I knew it had such an effect. It was specially designed for me. Do you think there is an existence higher than us ancestor gods in the myriad worlds? It truly controls the will of the heavens and cares for me. It knows that I want to become an ancestral dragon, so it gave me this rope? Bullshit. It seemed like this guy did not want to say anything. Longchen was extremely puzzled. Based on everything he knew, it was impossible for such a strange thing to exist. Yet it had appeared just like that. It was beyond the scope of his understanding. That was what made Longchen feel fear. Not demon ancestor Qiyu. Since you don't want to say it, let me do it. The original soul ancestor couldn't help but enter the primordial chaos space. He extended his 5 claws and pierced into demon ancestor Qiyu's world source to search his soul. In the myriad worlds, the only one who could search the memories of the 5th era's ancestor god was the original soul ancestor. Everyone was waiting. After a while, demon ancestor Qiyu's body was pale and he was extremely weak. Only then did the original soul ancestor stop. He looked at everyone and shook his head with a strange expression. What's wrong? Primordial War Ancestor asked. Everyone wanted to know too. After the original soul ancestor came out, he said, it's like this. Regarding the memory of Kama, he has indeed deepened his protection and guarded this secret tightly. It is probably to prevent me from searching his soul. With his ability, if he guarded it tightly, it would indeed be difficult for me to break through in a short period of time. However, he definitely cannot change his memories in front of me. In other words, he can only keep 1 or 2 pieces of information from me, but he cannot change the information. Chapter 3560. When searching for life, Longchen had searched the entire Xueqi demon realm. Clearly, he had never seen this rope before. It was only after that it appeared. It was obtained by the Qiyu demon ancestor. Who? This was a very terrifying thing. Who could it be? It's possible that another 4th epoch's primordial ancestor god found it and wanted to use Qiyu fiend ancestor to deal with Longchen. But why doesn't he use it himself? Most likely, he was afraid that if he were to relocate and become the 7th era's elder god, he would incur the wrath of the other elder gods, resulting in him being destroyed. That's why he sent Patriarch Qiyu? All of these were possible. However, it was a little far-fetched. Even demon ancestor Qiyu himself did not know, so it could only be a guess. However, there was definitely no evidence. Everyone thought for a long time. Finally, the Chaos Ancestral God said, we can't just think about it. At the very least, he knew that Longchen was in great danger. That was why he had to protect them for a long time. Now that we've dodged this calamity, I think the most important thing is still Longchen's own strength. As for the rope, we can slowly search it and lock onto the target. In the infinite worlds, only the other ancestral gods of the 4th era could fool the Qiyu fiend ancestor. They probably didn't expect the Qiyu fiend ancestor to obtain karma and use it so quickly. That's right. The key is Longchen's strength. Everyone looked at Longchen. You've done well to inform us of such an important matter in time. Unfortunately, we weren't able to help. In the end, you solved it yourself. However, the rope has already been destroyed, and it probably won't exist in the future. Other than this situation, we should all be able to help. I think that apart from his cultivation, we should always find 2 people and leave them on the dragon sacrificial continent. That's not a problem. We'll definitely let you grow up safely without any danger. Longchen was extremely grateful to them. In the future, he would definitely repay this favor. In the end, he looked at demon ancestor Qiyu and said, everyone, how should we deal with him? In fact, everyone was thinking the same thing. Do you hate him? Asked the primal chaos ancestral god. He almost killed me, so of course he hates me. If it was me in the past, I would want nothing more than to kill him. Unfortunately, he was a creation ancestral god. Apart from killing him, Other punishments were nothing. So forget it. It doesn't mean anything, but I can't deny that his current strength is enough to crush me. In a normal battle, Long Chen had nearly killed him in just 2 or 3 moves. The Qiyu fiend ancestor was indeed powerful. He has committed such a heinous crime. He should be imprisoned for at least 10,000 years. The primal chaos ancestral god said. That would be meaningless. In fact, what Long Chen wanted more was to defeat him, to make him completely cut off all thoughts of him, to make him completely convinced. You don't have to be kind to me. If I have the chance, I'll still do it. Qiyu fiend ancestor said stubbornly. Then I'll wait. Next time, it won't be you suppressing me. Long Chen looked at him coldly. Their gazes ignited a fierce flame. It's a pity that you didn't participate in the battle of the 5th era's ancestor god. Haha. Qiyu fiend ancestor laughed. This matter was unknown to the Chaos Hole ancestor and the others. Clearly, after leaving, Qiyu fiend ancestor wouldn't say a word. This was a solo action. If he said it, the Chaos Hole ancestor and the others would probably want to kill him because he wasted a chance to kill Long Chen. That's nothing. At most a year, I'll make you my defeated opponent. Long Chen replied. The demon ancestor Qiyu laughed even harder when he heard this, and he said, All right, I'll accept your bragging. If you have the balls, then come and fight me in a year from now. I'll absolutely not refuse, no matter the time. In my eyes, you're blessed by heaven and have millions of resources, but you're still a piece of trash. If I were you, I'd be 10 times worse than you. Qiyu fiend ancestor looked down on him from the bottom of his heart. Then wait and see. Long Chen asked primordial chaos ancestor god to let him go and let him leave the tomb of reincarnation. Qiyu fiend ancestor laughed loudly and left. After he left, the 4th era's primordial ancestor god still felt that letting him go like this was a loss. Long Chen said, at least he survived this time and obtained karma. However, the key isn't the punishment he receives, but the origin of the rope. Therefore, if we let him go and monitor him, we might be able to discover something. Primordial Chaos Ancestor God said, That's right. I'm proficient in the primordial space Tao. Qiyu Fiend Ancestor can't discover me. Leave this matter to me. Thank you, Primordial Chaos Ancestor God. I'm also doing this for the peace and development of the myriad worlds. We're gathered together because of a common goal. There's no need to thank me. They were too good to Long Chen. Fine, let's put this matter aside and focus on cultivation. In this year, Primordial Chaos and I will stay on the Draconic Sacrificial Continent. If you make a move, we won't leave you. Primordial Chaos Ancestor God said. Long Chen was grateful, but he didn't say it out loud. Just like Primordial Chaos Ancestor God said, everyone had the same goal. Soon, Primordial Chaos Ancestor God left to follow Qiyu Fiend Ancestor. Other than Primordial Chaos Ancestor God and Primordial War Ancestor, the other 4th era's Primordial Ancestor Gods also returned to their own worlds to search for clues about the rope. Primordial Chaos Ancestor God and Primordial War Ancestor God followed Long Chen back to the Draconic Sacrificial Continent. Your world is truly magnificent. Primordial Chaos Ancestor God was also very envious. How's Pangu Ancestor God? He's still recovering in the Tower of Time, Long Chen answered. Fortunately, you weren't hit by his ominous demon Qi. Otherwise it would be troublesome. After chatting with the 2 ancestor gods for a while, Long Chen came to the 4th floor of the Tower of Time. Now that he had obtained karma, his mission was to turn it into the world's source. Of course, it would be even better if he had news about the divine Tao heart refining dragon's origin dragon soul. On the 4th floor of the Tower of Time, the golden black karma of good and evil floated and rotated in front of Long Chen. Righteousness of the human world. Long Chen's judgment rule struck the karma of good and evil like a lightning bolt. Bas! The karma of good and evil was directly crushed into powder. However, the powder didn't dissipate. The golden black light of the righteousness of the human world gradually merged with the powder, emitting light. The powder condensed in Long Chen's hand and gradually turned into a godly weapon. It was the original form of the world's source. Finally it took shape. Taking a closer look, it was a 2-meter-long golden and black halberd. The spearhead was sharp like the forehead of the divine Tao heart refining dragon. The judgment sword was golden in color. There were two black blades on the left and right, like dragon fangs. Similar to the Kama halberd was, of course, the slaughter blood sword. As for the time sword, it was like a chain or a necklace, similar to the life ring. The Kama halberd. Long Chen held the halberd. This was the Kama world's source. Although Long Chen couldn't control it before obtaining the origin dragon soul of the divine Tao heart-refining dragon, he could still feel its righteousness. Judgment, good and evil. Before the epoch, the ancestral dragon that appeared the most on the dragon sacrificial continent was the Judgment Divine Tao heart-refining dragon that ranked 5th. Holding the halberd, Long Chen searched carefully and pondered. Why is there no news about the origin dragon soul? He searched carefully, but there was no result. In the past, when he obtained the world source, there would basically be a hint. However, there was none this time. On the 4th floor of the Tower of Time, Long Chen spent 100 years studying this karma halberd, but he found nothing. This karma halberd was like a dead object and didn't have much effect for the time being. How could this be? Could it be that the clue is going to disappear here? This made Long Chen very distressed. If he still couldn't find anything after another 100 years, he would give up. It seems that the divine Tao heart-refining dragon didn't put the clue about the origin dragon soul in this karma halberd. In fact, 200 years wasn't a long time in the myriad worlds. At this time, the Chi-Yu demon ancestor had just returned to the Jiuli demon domain, and the primordial ancestor god had started to track his whereabouts. There were still 10,000 years before the final battle of the 5th era's ancestral god. Since I said that I would defeat the Chi-Yu demon ancestor in a year, I have to do it. So, let's start cultivating. After all, Kitten, Lingxi, and the others were still cultivating. Kitten wanted to break through to the 6th era's ancestral god realm. Lingxi was trying to break through to the 5th era's ancestral god realm. If he didn't work hard, Lingxi would surpass him. Moreover, Mo Xiaolang had still lost his freedom and was waiting for him. Work hard. Time flew by. Time flew fast in cultivation. 1,000 years passed. Long Chen's first goal was to condense the 4th world of slaughter, origin. This was very difficult, but it didn't stop him from moving forward. In the blink of an eye, 6,000 years had passed. After 6,000 years of silence, when Lingxi successfully entered the 5th era's ancestral god realm and the White Lotus had 5 worlds' origins, Long Chen's slaughter had the 4th world's origin. Chapter 3561. When Massacre obtained the 4th world origin, Long Chen was considered to have stepped into the 6th era's origin ancestor god realm. Of course, his true combat strength had long entered the 5th era's origin ancestor god realm. However, this was naturally not enough for Long Chen. His next goal was to let time and life step into the 6th era's origin ancestor god realm. Only then would he be considered a complete 6th era's origin ancestor god realm. However, after persisting for 6,000 years, he also knew how to rest and nurture his spirit. Occasionally, he would come outside the Dragonrite continent to communicate with the Chaos Ancestor God and Primordial Battle Ancestor. On the 4th level of the Tower of Time, Pangu was using his own strength to expel Chiyo's baleful aura. How is it? Can you expel this baleful aura during the final battle of the 5th era's origin ancestor gods? Long Chen asked with concern. Pangu said, that's not a problem, but I'm worried about something else. Please speak. Ancestral god Pangu said, this 10,000 demonic baleful chi is truly strange. After experiencing this calamity, my ancestral soul will most likely be weakened. In terms of battle strength, I reckon that I won't be able to return to my peak state. It won't be easy to defeat that Chi-Yu demon ancestor. However, if I don't defeat him, I'll suffer too much this time. I won't be able to feel at ease, and my thoughts won't be clear. Chi-Yu demon ancestor. Long Chen was defeated by him, and they had agreed to fight during the final battle of the 5th era's origin ancestor god realm. Although I've reached the 6th era's origin ancestor realm, I'm still not perfect. Now, I might be able to barely deal with the 5th era's origin ancestor gods born in the middle of the era, but I shouldn't be a match for Chi-Yu demon ancestor, Pangu, Hongjun, and the other ancestor gods. This was something he knew himself well enough to do. Of course, all the ancestor gods were amazed and envious of his speed of improvement. In addition to cultivation, Long Chen was also guiding his 3 children, Long Yen, Long Lin, and Long Qingxing. Now that they had a second world origin, they specialized in one path and were extremely talented. Their improvement speed was almost catching up to Long Chen. After all, they were all ancestor dragons. Daddy look fuck. Long Qingsheng ran in front of Long Chen and extended his hand. A small blade of grass appeared in his palm. When Long Qingsheng placed it on the ground of Dragon Sacrifice Continent, it grew into a large tree that swayed in the wind. Long Qingsheng blinked his big green eyes and looked at Long Chen, full of expectation. Daddy, did I do well? He was very quick-witted and intelligent, but his personality was a little weak, different from Long Yan and Long Lin. Now, Long Qingsheng's brothers and sisters had grown into young men and women. Needless to say, their appearances were unparalleled in the myriad of worlds. Long Yan was beautiful and had a heroic spirit, while Long Lin was handsome and mysterious with an extraordinary temperament. As the youngest brother, Long Qingsheng had inherited more of Lingxi's looks, exquisite and charming. Not bad. However, all living things can still be used in actual combat. Long Qingsheng said timidly, but father, I don't want to fight with people. This child had a gentle personality since he was young. Long Chen pondered for a moment, thinking, it's me who gave the children a peaceful environment. But if one day I fall, they will have to participate in the battle and protect Dragon Sacrifice Continent. It's just that Qingsheng is a good child. He only loves life, not slaughter. He fits perfectly with Taiji Lifeform's dragon. I can't lead a child to slaughter for the sake of strength. His future fate belongs to him. As for what path to take, it's still up to him to decide. Long Chen didn't influence his thoughts. Do what you want to do. As long as you think, reflect, and work hard for your goal, you will become the best you can be. Yes, father. I'm going to play. Long Qingsheng left cheerfully. He liked to live on Dragon Sacrifice Continent and didn't like to go to the boring environment of Tower of Time. Instead, Long Lin liked it. After all, he was a Void Universe dragon. Like Long Chen, he spent most of his time in Tower of Time. Looking at the current situation, Long Lin seemed to have a better foundation. He would surpass Long Yan soon. In terms of personality, he was getting closer and closer to Long Chen. This was a good thing. A family needed a pillar in a generation, and Long Lin was just right. As for Long Yan, she was more playful. She might need to experience some things before fully maturing. Long Chen loved these three children very much, even more than he loved himself. Time passed. Sometimes, he would stop and communicate with Lingxi and Li Xuanji. Now, the myriad of worlds seemed to be very quiet. Under the observation of the fourth era ancestral gods, demon ancestor Qi Yu didn't make any movements. The rope that changed fate had become an unsolved mystery. However, Long Chen knew very well that there must be a pair of unknown eyes staring at him. Before completely destroying the Sky Devouring clan, I can't slack at all. Although the Sky Devouring clan was still imprisoned by the first ancestral dragon, Long Chen still felt that it had something to do with the Sky Devouring clan. However, the fourth era ancestral gods couldn't find them after searching through the myriad of worlds. Now, Long Chen was racing against the Sky Devouring clan. If he succeeded, the myriad of worlds would be reborn. If he failed, the myriad of worlds would be destroyed, and everything would come to an end. Unexpectedly, after 6,000 years, which was about 6 months in the outside world, Long Chen was preparing to condense the origin of the fourth world in time when the Origin Dragon servant discovered new news. Long Chen, we found a steel bridge in the myriad of worlds. It's very strange. You must come and take a look. Strange, I've searched this place before, but there was no such steel bridge. Steel bridge? Long Chen didn't have a clue, but he trusted the Origin Dragon servant very much. If he found it strange, there must be something strange about it. Therefore, he came directly to the Dragonrite continent and experienced the incident with demon ancestor Qi Yu. Now, the primal chaos ancestral god and the others said that no matter where Long Chen went, they would follow and guard both sides at all times. Primal chaos ancestral god. Primordial battle ancestor. Long Chen arranged accommodation for them on the Dragonrite continent. What's the matter? Long Chen actually came out from time to chat with them. My Origin Dragon servant said that they found a steel bridge somewhere in the myriad of worlds and asked me to go and take a look. Will the two of you go together? Steel bridge. Hearing these words, the primal chaos ancestral god and primordial battle ancestor appeared beside Long Chen. Their expressions were the same as Long Chen's. They were puzzled and confused. Do you have a clue? No. Then let's go and take a look. I'm the creator of the steel race. I should be able to see through steel objects, said primordial battle ancestor. Long Chen and the two of them crossed the death realm and flew across the starry sky. Soon, they arrived at the location mentioned by the origin dragon servants. The origin dragon servants and the other dragon servants were here. The 8 dragon servants were surrounding an object that was about 100 meters long. When Long Chen and the other two approached, they found that it was indeed a pitch-black bridge made of some unknown material. It stretched across the starry sky, quiet and cold. This is it. It might be related to primordial battle ancestor, said the origin dragon servant. Long Chen actually thought that he had understood the myriad of worlds, but he didn't expect that the myriad of worlds would give him such a huge surprise every time. For example, this steel bridge. Obviously, Long Chen felt that this steel bridge was made of a material that he couldn't understand. If he had to describe what it felt like, it was slightly similar to the key of the Jade Divine Realm. Apart from the origin dragon servant, the other dragon servants spread out and let Long Chen and the others observe carefully. Long Chen approached this divine object, touched and observed. There are billions of metallic objects in the myriad of worlds, but such a material has never appeared. It's not hard, but it seems to hide many secrets, said Long Chen. In the shape of a steel bridge, it looked very simple. However, they soon discovered some strange points. There were many relief sculptures on it. Those relief sculptures were actually in the shape of steel life forms. Although they were made of steel, they were also living beings. Long Chen counted. There were about 1,000 relief sculptures of steel life forms on the entire bridge. Some were big and some were small. Among them, the 2 biggest ones were gold and silver. They were the only embellishments on this black bridge. Chapter 3562. The primordial war ancestor saw it the most carefully. His platinum-colored steel face was expressionless, but one could feel that he was also very confused. He said, I'm familiar with the billions of steel materials in the myriad worlds, but this is the first time I've seen such a divine object. Moreover, it has the steel race's primitive worship on it. What's more strange is that although the carvings are of the steel race, they are slightly different from the original worship race. Long Chen said, could it be that there's another group of steel race in the universe? Just like the golden war god race of the dragon sacrificial continent, there were many steel race scattered across the universe. However, they were all branches of the primitive worship race. But the primordial war ancestor said that the steel race was different, so it clearly had nothing to do with the primitive worship race. That's possible. The primordial war ancestor said cautiously. The origin dragon attendant was the one who knew the most. He thought for a moment and said, actually, before the epoch, there were many secrets in the universe. The 3rd epoch's origin cave is a secret passed down among the ancestor gods. I only learned of it by chance. The fate dragon attendant came here about a year ago, so it's certain that this bridge was born here within a year. Within a year? Everyone studied it for a long time. Primordial war ancestor even dug out a piece of steel from it. When that piece of steel left the bridge, it melted like liquid and disappeared from the world. Amazing. The primordial war ancestor was very interested. Long Chen let him think. About 4 days later, the primordial war ancestor had a headache. Although the bridge was riddled with holes, he still hadn't found anything. If that's the case, we can try to destroy it. We haven't found anything anyway. The Chaos Ancestor's style was straightforward. Let me. The primordial war ancestor didn't hesitate. He was almost ready. He stood at the center of the bridge and clenched his platinum steel fist. Even without laws, the power of the origins of the 6 worlds would be a terrifying force when it struck the steel bridge. Although the steel was amazing, it wasn't as sturdy as imagined. Long Chen could destroy it in a few months. Boom! As soon as the fist made contact with the bridge, the entire bridge crumbled right before Long Chen's eyes, turning into countless particles of steel that enveloped Long Chen, the origin dragon attendant, the Chaos Grand Elder, and the primordial war progenitor like smoke. It actually shattered? Long Chen thought that this clue might have been completely cut off. After all, it had already been shattered. Maybe we're overthinking it. This thing isn't that special. When the Chaos Ancestral God said that, he suddenly stopped. Because in that instant, all the steel particles seemed to have come to life, instantly sweeping around rapidly. In a very short time, it was as if a vortex had been formed, tearing apart the space of the infinite worlds, enveloping Long Chen and the other three. The entire space instantly collapsed, and with a loud hum, before Long Chen could resist, it was like the heaven-defying rope that changed fate, pulling Long Chen into another space. At that time, Long Chen had a bad feeling. He was worried that the fate-changing rope would appear again, or something similar. However, clearly, the Chaos Ancestral God and the Primordial War Progenitor did not resist. I'd like to know what will appear this time. This was the voice of the Chaos Ancestral God. With them around, Long Chen did not have to worry, because the Ancestral Gods were the supreme beings of the infinite worlds, the most powerful beings. With the most powerful beings by his side, who else could threaten him? And there were two of them. Origin Dragon Attendant. Long Chen pulled him back, not expecting him to come in too. The Chaos Ancestral God had heard Long Chen describe the Jade Divinity World, which was why he asked this question. In fact, he knew that this place was different from the Jade Divinity World. Of course not. The Jade Divinity World is surrounded by rock, but this is surrounded by steel. This place is much bigger and vaster than the Jade Divinity World. As far as the eye could see, the entire world was shrouded in a thick fog of various colors. In fact, this fog was made up of steel particles, but it was undeniable that this was spiritual qi. It was a spiritual qi that was much thicker than the Jade Divinity World's spiritual qi. Coming here, Long Chen seemed to see the world before the epoch. Through the endless thick steel fog, he could vaguely see a huge continent. The size of this continent was much bigger than the current dragon sacrificial continent. This world is so huge. The spiritual qi here is so thick. Even the Primordial War Ancestor felt extremely shocked and excited. Even the Primordial War Ancestor before the epoch wasn't as big as this world. The fourth epoch is only equivalent to about a quarter of this. According to the spiritual qi, even before the epoch, it surpassed all the fourth epoch worlds. It's just inferior to the dragon sacrificial continent. If I really have to rank it, I estimate that the level of this world is already close to the third epoch. This was the conclusion of the Primordial War Ancestor. The Jade Divinity World had already amazed Long Chen. He had never thought that there would be such a world among the myriad worlds. It was completely beyond his imagination. Even if this world was placed among the myriad worlds, it would be an absolute giant. The dragon sacrificial continent couldn't compare at all. Unless Long Chen restored the dragon sacrificial continent to its pre-epoch state. Fortunately, this shouldn't be a world created by the Ancestor God. Otherwise, there would definitely be a third-era Ancestor God in this world, Long Chen said with some lingering fear. How do you know that this isn't a world created by the Ancestor God? The Chaos Ancestor God asked with a frown. If there was a third-era Ancestor God, it would be a problem for them to leave safely today. Long Chen said, I guess this is a place similar to the Jade Divinity World, just bigger. The Jade Divinity World is a world born of myriad worlds. There is only the Ancestor God of Destruction, so I guess this place is the same. The people of the Jade Divinity World are all made of jade. If I'm not wrong, this should be the steel race carved on the bridge. Makes sense. The Primordial War Ancestor had already observed enough. At this time, the Origin Dragon Attendant in the God Nation said, Hearing you say this, I think the Jade Divinity World is the third era Yuan Grotto. It was born directly in the third era. It's a completely sealed world hidden among the myriad worlds. In that case, I've actually guessed before. Other than the Jade God world, could there be other worlds born from the infinite worlds that are also hidden? Even the Sky Swallowing clan doesn't know about them. I seem to have heard people guessing about the second era Yuan Grotto. Maybe the world you're in now is the second era Yuan Grotto. When this team broke through the clouds and revealed their figures, Long Chen finally saw them clearly. As expected, they were all from the Steel Race. Perhaps to the Primordial War Ancestral God, they might be different, but to Long Chen, He couldn't see any difference between the primordial war ancestral god and these steel race people. They were all steel beings. Among them, the two at the front were the Fourth Era's ancestral destruction ancestral gods. One of them was pure gold, burly, and had an extremely complex body as if assembled from countless parts. There were countless dark golden divine patterns on it. The other was petite. Although she was from the steel race, she still had a graceful feeling. Her divine body was closer to that of the human race. Although she was made of steel, she also had a body of flesh and blood. Those beautiful silver divine might also added some color to her. She even had a head of silver hair that danced in the wind. Apart from these two, the other Fifth Era's ancestral destruction ancestral gods were also unique and had their own merits. Among the 10, about 2 were equivalent to the Fifth Era's ancestral god born at the beginning of the era. Long Chen admitted that he wasn't their match. As for the others, if he went all out, he could probably deal with them. Just like that, the two sides collided in this steel cloud. It was very quiet. The primordial war ancestral god was fine since he was also a steel being. However, the primal chaos ancestral god and Long Chen clearly exceeded their expectations. In fact, the primordial chaos ancestral god also had a body of flesh and blood. It was just that it was difficult to see because he was surrounded by the elements of chaos. You are aliens from the dragon sacrificial realm. The silver-colored Fourth Era's mechanical yet agile voice said. Although the voice wasn't polite, it directly pierced into Long Chen's body. That's right. We came from the dragon sacrificial realm and mistakenly entered this place. May I ask where this place is? The primordial war ancestral god maintained vigilance and asked at the same time. They looked at each other. Seeing that Long Chen and the others didn't seem to be hostile for the time being, they relaxed a little. At this time, the Golden One said in a deep voice, "This place is called the Ancestral Destruction Realm. We have lived here for billions of years. Although we have heard of the Dragon Sacrificial Realm, no ancestral god of the Dragon Sacrificial Realm has ever entered the Ancestral Destruction Realm. It is said that according to your timeline, our world was born in the Second Era. You call this place the Second Era Grotto." As expected. However, no one from the Dragon Sacrificial Realm had entered for billions of years. How would he know what the people of the Dragon Sacrificial Realm called this place? This was Long Chen's question. I am the devilish silver ancestor, and this is the bright gold ancestor. The two of us are the supreme ancestral gods of the Ancestral Destruction Realm. May I know how to address you too? The Fourth Era's ancestral god was obviously afraid of the primal chaos ancestral god and the primal war ancestral god. As for Long Chen, he didn't pay attention to him. I am the primal chaos ancestral god. I am the primal war ancestral god. They introduced themselves. The Fifth Era's ancestral god and the other ancestral gods in the distance all observed Long Chen with vigilance. At this time, the bright gold ancestor said solemnly, "To be honest, the Ancestral Destruction Realm has been peaceful for many years and has never experienced great turmoil. Because of your arrival today, the entire realm is in great turmoil. Although this is a little offensive, I still have to confirm. Did you say that you accidentally entered the Ancestral Destruction Realm?" The Primal Chaos Ancestral God said, "That's right. We found a steel bridge with thousands of steel race carved on it. We couldn't understand it, so we destroyed the bridge. I didn't expect it to pull us here. Of course. We accidentally entered." "Then what are your plans?" asked the devilish silver ancestor. The Primal Chaos Ancestral God and the Primal War Ancestral God looked at each other and then at Long Chen. Long Chen said, "Don't worry, we have no ill intentions towards the Ancestral Destruction Realm. We don't want any conflict, but we came here out of nowhere. It's a little chaotic now. If there's nothing else, our plan is to find a way to return to our dragon sacrificial realm. After all, we belong there." At this time, they noticed that Long Chen was standing between the two ancestral gods. The two ancestral gods were protecting him. Clearly, Long Chen's identity was special. They also vaguely noticed the enormous might hidden in Long Chen's bloodline. The destruction ancestral gods of the destruction ancestral domain glanced at each other. In the end, the luminous gold ancestor said seriously, "To be honest, do you have a way to leave?" The primal chaos ancestral god said, "Apart from blasting open this wall, there is no other way. What we want to ask is, do you have a way for us to leave?" Back then, The Jade Emperor Celestial Emperor had a way, and the Origin Dragon Attendant could confirm it. But it was different now. The Origin Dragon Attendant couldn't confirm the existence of the other party. Judging from the current situation, the other party wanted nothing more than for Long Chen's group to leave as soon as possible. The Devilish Silver Ancestor said, "My apologies, we don't have a way for you to return. That's troublesome. As for breaking open this wall, I think that's definitely not possible. However, we can at least confirm that the three of you have no ill intentions towards our world. Since that's the case, you are guests from afar. Why don't you come to the Ancestral Destruction Realm and rest for a while we entertain you? It won't be too late to discuss leaving and find a way." That's right. It's rare for the Ancestral Destruction Realm to have 3 guests of this level. We are very curious about the Dragon Sacrificial Realm. Since we have the opportunity today, I hope you can do us the honor, said the Bright Gold Ancestor. In fact, the more they feared Long Chen's group, the more they didn't want to bring them to the Ancestral Destruction Realm. After all, that would be very dangerous for all living beings. But since they made this decision, it seemed like they trusted Long Chen's group. Chapter 3564. They arrived at the Destruction Ancestral Realm. In this vast world that surpassed the Fourth Era, the Destruction Ancestral Gods of the Steel Race, led by the Bright Gold Ancestor and the Devil Silver Ancestor, received Long Chen and the others. They were very enthusiastic. Perhaps it was also the first time in tens of billions of years that the Bright Gold Ancestor and the Devil Silver Ancestor had personally come to find guests. Even the countless living beings in the Destruction Ancestral Domain knew about the arrival of the 3 visitors from outer space. The news spread easily. After all, the Destruction Ancestral Gods were more likely to have connections with divine sovereigns and divine emperors. 1 spread to 10, 10 to 100. The appearance of the 2 legendary ancestors was the most fortunate and incredible thing that had happened to the Destruction race. Going back through countless eras, their ancestors had never seen the Bright Gold Ancestor and the Devil Silver Ancestor appear. Even the gods didn't dare to fly into the sky, fearing that they would accidentally blaspheme the might of the ancestor gods. Countless steel race beings were excited. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that so many ancestors would appear? What are the backgrounds of those 3 visitors from outer space? How could they make the ancestors appear? It's said that there's an even bigger world outside our Destruction Ancestral Realm, 10 times the size of our world. That's the biggest world. A world without end. A world without end. Those 3 ancestor gods came from that world. Which world? What's its name? It seems to be the Dragon Sacrificial Realm. Then, are those 3 alien elder gods as powerful as our ancestor? How is that possible? The ancestors have existed for as long as the Destruction Ancestral Realm. They had surpassed countless beings. In an ancient simple palace, the 2 ancestor gods who stood at the peak of the world sat across from each other. Across from an ancient pitch-black table were the ancestor gods of the steel race. They were machines and naturally couldn't show expressions, but their actions were warm. This is the item of our Destruction Ancestral Realm, called the Heavenly Jade Ancestral Water. It has the effect of increasing the origin power of the world. It has a unique taste. Please have a taste. The other party welcomed them warmly. Long Chen had long been attracted by the exquisite nectar in the cups on the table. To be honest, this was something that couldn't be produced in the myriad worlds. It surpassed the level of primordial chaos treasures and primordial chaos immortal spirits. Such a divine object could only be born in a world like the ancestral land of destruction. Of course, the dragon sacrificial continent from before the epoch was also a possibility. Obviously, this was an extremely precious item. The fact that the other party took it out was also proof of his hospitality. Thank you. Long Chen tasted it. The aroma assailed his nostrils, and it was a little stimulating. It felt like a mortal drinking wine. This was a taste that Long Chen hadn't experienced in countless years. Most importantly, it was just as he had said. As soon as the heavenly jade ancestral water entered his mouth, it turned into a sweet spring. The pure primordial power entered the world's origin and was easily absorbed by the world's origin and converted into world origin energy. Only a mouthful of it was equal to dozens of years on the 4th floor of the Tower of Time. If he had a large amount of heavenly jade ancestral water, Long Chen would probably be able to reach a new realm in no time. However, it was obvious that this kind of thing could only be born after billions of years. Both sides got to know each other and chatted. The bright gold ancestor and the devilish silver ancestor were very interested in such a world. Lying like this was actually the main purpose, but he was worried that these two had some thoughts about the myriad worlds. Although there wasn't much of such a possibility, it wouldn't be wrong to be on guard. Amazing! The ancestor dragons are truly amazing. The dragon sacrificial continent's order isn't without reason. The bright gold ancestor sighed repeatedly. The other 1,000 destruction ancestor gods were also in a state of deep shock. Originally, they thought that the two worlds could still be compared. Now, it seemed that the destruction of the ancestral territory clearly couldn't compare to the dragon sacrificial continent at all. It was like a small subsidiary of the dragon sacrificial continent. After discussing for a while, it was time to get to the main point. Right now the other ancestor gods were paying the most attention to Long Chen, so Long Chen asked, "Seniors, to be honest, we have entered the destruction of the ancestral territory by mistake. Our friends and relatives in the dragon sacrificial continent will definitely be very anxious without any news of us. The two worlds are separated, so I think it's best for the three of us to return as soon as possible. I was just asking before, but now I want to confirm whether the three of us have a way to leave this place and return to the dragon sacrificial continent." "Yes, we must return," said the primal chaos ancestor. The primordial war ancestor naturally meant the same thing. After all, even if they occupied and destroyed the ancestral territory, it wouldn't be of much use to them. At this point, the bright gold ancestor and the devil silver ancestor looked at each other. In the end, the devil silver ancestor said, "My apologies, we really don't know how to send the three of you back. We can only ponder and research from now on." Long Chen said, "With the four of your abilities, we can give it a try. If the four of you gather your strength, we might be able to break that steel wall. If that's the case, we should be able to return." "That won't do." The bright gold ancestor shook his head. "Why not?" Actually, based on what he said, this method should be possible. The bright gold ancestor was silent for a moment before saying, "If the wall is broken, the ancestral territory will become a part of the dragon sacrificial continent. We need to be responsible for our clansmen and descendants. After all, the dragon sacrificial continent is so powerful, and the two worlds are compatible. Clearly, the ancestor gods of the dragon sacrificial continent aren't the same as the three of you. We are also worried that it will greatly affect the dragon sacrificial continent. Such a major event that changes the fate of the dragon sacrificial continent needs to be carefully considered." It was reasonable for them to worry about this. Long Chen communicated with them again, but they couldn't agree. In the end, the devil silver ancestor said, "Let's put this method aside for now. Since you can come in, there must be a way out. I think we can do this. You can rest here for a while, and the bright gold ancestor and I will look for a way. If there is any news, we will inform you. After such a long time, there are indeed some clues, but we don't want to go out, so we haven't delved into it. Then we'll have to trouble you." Since they weren't willing to open the passage between the dragon sacrificial continent and the dragon sacrificial continent, they couldn't force it. Moreover, Long Chen and the others weren't sure what would happen if they entered the infinite worlds. The sky-devouring clans crisis hasn't been resolved yet. If they go to the infinite worlds, such a disaster will affect them, and they might even face the danger of extinction. This matter needs to be carefully considered. The other party had treated them with great hospitality, so Long Chen also needed to be responsible for their future. "The three of you, I have prepared a simple residence for you. Please follow me." Chapter 3565. The place the ancestor of destruction had arranged for them was a star in the sky of the ancestral land of destruction. It was built like a heavenly palace, and it was extremely prosperous and majestic. "It's quieter here and won't be disturbed by the gods and devils of the mortal world. Please wait here for a few days." The devilish silver ancestor had arranged for them to stay here. The destroyed race was very polite to them. Looking down from this star, they could see the entire ancestral land of destruction. Long Chen found this world to be extremely mystical. After the devilish silver ancestor left, the three looked at each other helplessly. Looks like we can only wait, Long Chen said. If it really doesn't work out, I'm afraid we'll have to force them to open the passage. After all, we can't stay here for too long. The primal chaos ancestor gods said. Although this was the case, Long Chen still felt a little apologetic when the other party treated them with great hospitality and forced them into such a manner. Let's wait first. There will be a way out. The primal war ancestor wasn't in a hurry. After all, they had just entered. As for the myriad worlds, there were still a few dragon attendants around. With them passing on the message, there shouldn't be any problems. In the ancestral land of destruction, in the ancient palace that had previously hosted Long Chen, the bright gold ancestor was waiting for the devilish silver ancestor to return. His expression was cold. Before long, the devilish silver ancestor appeared beside him. Did you send them to planet Cretaceous? The bright gold ancestor asked. Of course they're resting now. The bright gold ancestor looked at the tiny white star in the sky and suddenly laughed. He shook his head. After so many years, the inheritor of the ancestral dragons has finally appeared. And he actually came to our ancestral land of destruction. Even the heavens are on our side. Yes, we didn't expect him to come at all. And we don't know what happened before the dragon sacrificial world epoch. 10 ancestral dragons? Aren't the 10 great ancestor dragons in tragedy now? The devilish silver ancestor's mercury-like face was filled with excitement. There were many destruction ancestor gods around, but most of them were listening to the conversation between the two of them. Perhaps only some of the fifth-era ancestor gods could understand what they were saying. That's enough. The myriad worlds have already reached this level. Furthermore, since the inheritor of the ancestral dragon has entered our world, this is a great opportunity that has been presented to us. Of course, we have to treasure it. The two of us, exalted elder gods of destruction, have already cultivated to this level. Why would we be afraid of those elder gods of creation? It's been billions of years, and we've been trapped in a small place like the destruction ancestral realm. We're going crazy. Undying and indestructible, solitary and eternal. This was also a kind of pain. Even though he had become an elder god, his heart was still that of a mortal. The luminous gold ancestor raised his hand and shouted, Fifth era's ancestor god, heed my command. Follow me to capture 3 otherworld ancestor gods. The other elder gods, assist me in activating the Annihilation Guardian formation and protect our Annihilation ancestral domain. Yes. Although most of the elder gods didn't know why, the long years of solitude had left them lonely and bored. Finally, there was this exciting moment. His heart, which had been silent for a long time, was finally boiling. Charge! The luminous gold ancestor, the devil silver ancestor, and more than 10 elder gods flew towards planet Chalk in the sky. The remaining destruction elder gods were scattered throughout the Annihilation ancestral domain. Imperceptibly, the Annihilation Guardian formation that the luminous gold ancestor and the devil silver ancestor had prepared for countless years was activated. Of course, the ones truly maintaining the formation were the 2 fourth era's primordial elder gods. At this time, the Annihilation ancestral domain underwent a tremendous change. A burst of light flashed, and billions of living beings were frozen in place, unable to move. It was as if everything had come to a standstill. Then, the entire continent began to twist, roll, and fold like a piece of cloth. Finally, it was completely sealed up and turned into a warship. It looked like a primitive warship, but it was colorful, and it was 4 times the size of a primitive warship from before the First Era. It was much larger than the primitive warships of the current era. All living beings, including the elder gods, were sealed inside the warship and within the Annihilation Guardian formation. Since it was a protective formation, it naturally wouldn't harm the living beings. In fact, the living beings didn't even know what was happening. They were frozen in place, as if they were in a deep slumber. When they woke up, the Annihilation ancestral domain would probably return to its original state. This was a great mystique, a great nomological law, that could only be done to such an extent. On planet Chalk, Long Chen, the primordial elder god, and the primordial battle ancestor were still searching for a way to leave this place. At that moment, they saw the transformation of the Annihilation ancestral domain. What's going on? The 3 of them were stunned. The transformation had just begun, but in the blink of an eye, Long Chen and the others realized that something was amiss. I'm afraid the Destruction Clan isn't as simple as we thought. The primordial elder god had just finished speaking when the entire planet chalk beneath their feet suddenly exploded. All of a sudden, the entire continent turned into a torrent of gold and silver. Therefore, the 10th Fifth Era's primordial elder gods had to make sure nothing went wrong. Chapter 3566. Have you all gone mad? Why are you doing this for no reason? The two 4th Era's primordial ancestral gods were entangled. Around them were 10 5th Era ancestral gods. The weakest here was at the level of the Jade Emperor Celestial the Arch. In addition, the devilish silver ancestor had split off a nomological law that stared at Long Chen. Clearly, that nomological law was the real thing to deal with Long Chen. That nomological law made Long Chen feel like he could control his soul. That was the enemy's biggest plan. When you surrender, you will naturally understand. The 5th Era's ancestral god couldn't be bothered to argue with Long Chen, so they naturally had to make the best use of their time. Instantly, 10 5th Era's ancestral gods and a nomological law that looked like the devilish silver ancestor charged towards Long Chen. Clearly, they didn't want to reveal it before they succeeded. Long Chen, these two fellows are fighting us with all their might. They probably won't be able to break free in a short time. However, these two can't attack you at all. Their target is you. Do you have a way to avoid these 5th Era ancestral gods and stall for time? At this critical moment, the Chaos ancestral gods could only pin their hopes on Long Chen. If Long Chen could stall for time, then there was nothing to worry about. Although they didn't know what the enemy's goal was, they could only deal with it now. No problem. The key was Long Chen. Here, there were two 5th Era ancestral gods who were born at the beginning of an era. 3 were equivalent to the middle of an era, and 5 were equivalent to the end of an era. At the end of an era, such as the Jade Emperor Celestial Ancestor Yang Mei, Long Chen could easily deal with them. As for the beginning of an era, although they weren't as strong as the Qi Yu Demon Ancestor, they were still quite terrifying. In a head-on battle, Long Chen would definitely lose. The only way was to escape. No wonder the Destruction Ancestral Territory was sealed and they brought me to this star. They were prepared. I can't use the Destruction Ancestral Territory to threaten them now. Fortunately, the Destruction Ancestral Territory is big enough, 1/10 the size of the Infinite Worlds, enough for me to escape. Time. He was proficient in the laws of time and could reverse time. Forbidden World. When the 10 ancestral gods of the 5th Era rushed over, Long Chen directly set up the time freeze law of the Forbidden World in the entire area. At this time, the other party couldn't surround her, so Long Chen directly escaped. Don't go! The 10 5th Era's ancestral gods and the devilish silver ancestors' nomological laws quickly chased after them. The Forbidden World wouldn't be able to hold back so many elder gods. All it did was obstruct their footsteps. Especially the laws of the devilish silver ancestor. It was an ice-cold steel, and Long Chen found it even more terrifying. It was even more terrifying than the two 5th Era ancestral gods who were close to the Qi Yu Demon Ancestor. What I really need to avoid is this. All living beings. Soon, the two fastest elder gods were about to close in on Long Chen. Long Chen had an enormous advantage in terms of the edicts, and he was able to quickly unleash the power of life from his ring of life. The two elder gods in the lead weren't paying attention, and instantly, wild grass began to grow out of their bodies. The leaves of the grass were as sharp as blades, and like sea urchins, the two elder gods exploded, riddling them with holes. The two strongest elder gods cried out in pain as they destroyed the wild grass. However, this also delayed their speed. They had underestimated Long Chen. They had never expected that Long Chen would be able to escape from their clutches. Therefore, they were hit right from the start, and even the other 5th Era's ancestral gods had overtaken them. The entire Destruction Ancestral Dominion was filled with a thick steel mist. Long Chen could travel billions of kilometers in a flash. The other party was relentless in their pursuit, and Long Chen kept changing positions. Fortunately, this world was large enough, and there were many stars to obstruct him. Long Chen was proficient in many nomological concealment. After a while, he completely escaped the line of sight of the Fifth Era's ancestral gods. However, he still had to move quickly in order to avoid the frenzied pursuit of the Fifth Era's ancestral gods. "Do you know why?" Long Chen asked the Origin Dragon attendant. "I don't know, but the Jade Emperor Celestial the Arch doesn't want to let you off." "Of course, that's because of the smelting divine cauldron. As for the steel race, I think it's related to your ancestral dragon legacy. Although I don't know what effect it has on them." "That makes sense. Regardless, I should wait for the Primal Chaos Ancestral God and the Primordial War Ancestral God to escape first." Long Chen didn't expect to have a conflict with the Ancestor Gods of Destruction here, so for the time being, he just kept moving his position, traveling around the entire world, making those Ancestor Gods who were chasing after him miss. Long Chen's escape was a huge surprise to the Bright Gold Ancestral God and the Devil Silver Ancestral God. They had a bad start, but they didn't give up. "This kid won't be able to escape for long. We were careless before," the Bright Gold Ancestral God said indifferently. "I say, is this really interesting? What exactly do you want?" the Primal Chaos Ancestral God said as he destroyed the shackles around him. He had been a little nervous before, but now that he saw Long Chen successfully escape, he felt much more at ease. He understood Long Chen and knew that Long Chen was quite formidable when it came to escaping. Humph. The Bright Gold Ancestral God and the Devil Silver Ancestral God ignored him. Perhaps before they succeeded, they didn't even want to say their goal. Forget it if you don't want to say it. In any case, you won't succeed. The Primal Chaos Ancestral God didn't want to ask anymore. Instead, his attacks rose to another level. Even the Bright Gold Ancestral God, who was trying his best to trap him, felt a headache coming on. Rumble. Long Chen approached the Destruction Ancestral Domain and tried to attack it. However, he discovered that he couldn't break through it with his current strength, so he immediately gave up and moved. "Spread out and find him. Immediately! Immediately!" Under the Bright Gold Ancestral God's orders, they split into 3 or 4 groups and patrolled the entire Second Era Yuan Stone. It was clear that the Bright Gold Ancestral God and the others couldn't control them for long. Success or failure depended on themselves. It was indeed difficult to find Long Chen with 10 people gathered together. "We'll seal off a few directions and do a carpet search. We must find him." The Fifth Era's Ancestral God used the law to search the entire Second Era Yuan Stone. Everywhere they went, space was torn apart and stars were destroyed. Endless explosions swept through the entire stone cave. Of course, the beings of the Destruction Clan couldn't hear it because they were all frozen. The Destruction Ancestral Domain was deathly silent. Hee hee. Long Chen was looking forward to them separating. If they didn't separate, he wouldn't have dared to appear and could only escape. Now that they separated, he could counterattack and buy more time for the Primal Chaos Ancestral God and the others. He kept moving and shuttling. At this time, a team of 3 people appeared in his field of vision. All 3 were from the Steel Race. Long Chen recognized these 2. At the banquet, the Fifth Era's Ancestral God had introduced them one by one. The one on the far left was humanoid. His body shone like a star and was blue in color. He was considered beautiful among the Steel Race. His name was Star Ancestral God. His world origin power should be equivalent to the Jade Emperor Celestial the Arch. The one in the middle was the strongest, probably equivalent to the Middle Era. This was a steel ant. It was crimson and seemed to have billions of suns burning within its body. Its name was Red Gold Ancestral God. The last one was humanoid. His body was similar to a human girl. He was beautiful and had 2 silver eyes. He was similar to the Devil Silver Ancestral God, but the Devil Silver Ancestral God's color was darker. Her eyes were big. Her name was Milky Way Ancestral God. Star Ancestral God, Red Gold Ancestral God, and Milky Way Ancestral God. Among them, Red Gold Ancestral God was the strongest. Long Chen was confident of defeating the other 2. Red Gold Ancestral God, on the other hand, would probably have to fight a hard battle. Long Chen checked his surroundings. The closest one is some distance from here. I have about 60 breaths of time. I will try to take these 3 as hostages within this time. That will be a great trump card. But with Red Gold Ancestral God here, it will be a great challenge. Whether or not I succeed will depend on luck. Now, only Massacre had 4 world origins. That allowed Long Chen to step into the 6th era's ancestral god realm. The 3 world origins were almost equivalent to these 3 opponents. Let's end this quickly. Chapter 3567. If he wanted to attack, he had to be fast, ruthless, and accurate. The Crimson Gold Ancestor, the Milky Way Ancestor, and the Astral Ancestor had yet to discover Long Chen. This was a small corner of the Destruction ancestral territory. The other 7 5th-era ancestral gods had scattered to other places. This was a great opportunity for Long Chen. Swoosh! Long Chen disappeared in a flash. Using the rules of time, his speed was faster than light. The Massacre sword in his hand already had 4 worlds' origins, and it was currently shining with a cold light. Blood light shone. Swoosh! It's him! Long Chen! The Crimson Gold Ancestor was the first to sense Long Chen's presence. However, Long Chen's main target was not him. The 3 of them split up slightly. Long Chen's first target was the Astral Ancestor. After hearing the Crimson Gold Ancestor's exclamation, the Astral Ancestor also sensed Long Chen's sneak attack. He could not care too much. Most Destruction ancestral gods were very good at fighting. At this moment, he suddenly turned and released the rules in his hand. Milky Way Steel Formation. In an instant, countless stars shone in the surroundings. These stars were all made of steel and had a tremendous force. They were densely packed and surrounded the Astral Ancestor, even forming a new world. The countless stars moved restlessly as if they were going to explode at any moment, forming a destructive attack. Naturally, the other 5th-era ancestral gods had already found out about Long Chen's location and rushed over. Hold him back. You must not let him escape. Everyone's voices echoed throughout the entire Destruction ancestral territory. 9 Deaths Massacre Sword. Long Chen had long been prepared. His attack would naturally be before the Astral Ancestor. In fact, the prowess of his 4 worlds' origins was not much weaker than the Astral Ancestors in terms of strength alone. Rumble! The 9 beams of sword chi formed into 9 blood-colored sword chi dragons that filled the sky. They roared as the 9 beams of sword chi slammed into the steel stars, causing them to explode. The prowess of the Astral Ancestor was about the same as that of the Jade Emperor, and could be considered to be slightly weaker. Although the Astral River Steel Formation was amazing and steel was everywhere, forming a shield that blocked off Long Chen's path, it was unable to block much of the Astral River Steel Formation. Under the impact of the 9 Deaths Massacre Sword, the Astral River Steel Formation exploded and shattered. Countless steel fragments and killing sword chi struck the Astral Ancestor's body. So. The Astral Ancestor let out a few painful cries, already riddled with holes. The blood-colored Massacre sword chi turned into sword chi currents that seethed around him, completely sealing off his escape routes. Defeated in one move. The Crimson Gold Ancestor and the Milky Way Ancestor were about to assist the Astral Ancestor in retaliating, but they had not expected such an outcome. Bang! Their hearts thumped violently, and the intense shock in their hearts caused the 2 ancestral gods of the 5th era to be momentarily stunned. During this moment of shock, Long Chen had already dashed up to the Astral Ancestor. Time Heart Lock. In an instant, the time chains wrapped around the Astral Ancestor, piercing through his flesh and bones, sealing him up tightly. This caused the Astral Ancestor to be unable to move and even be unable to recover from his injuries. Firstly, the Massacre sword chis were still going on a rampage in his body. The sealing powers of time caused his body to come to a standstill and be completely controlled by Long Chen. Save me! Swoosh! The Astral Ancestor was greatly astonished. He had only managed to say 2 words when he was dragged into the Divine Country by Long Chen using time. After all, the Astral Ancestor was unable to wreak havoc. The first battle was considered an easy success. However, the Crimson Gold Ancestor and the Milky Way Ancestor were only stunned for a moment. When Long Chen took away the Astral Ancestor, they had arrived and attacked at the same time. The situation was urgent and they could only unleash all their abilities. It had been many years since they had such a critical moment. Even they were a little rusty. Crimson Gold Smelting Furnace. The huge steel fire ants cultivation was the thickest. In a fit of rage, the entire world turned into a steel smelting furnace. Endless steel burning with terrifying flames was born in the surroundings, turning into millions and millions of swords that flew wildly in the surroundings. They then completely locked onto Long Chen and attacked violently. Steel and flames fought together. Milky Way torrent. On the other side, the Milky Way ancestor turned into an ocean. It was a liquid metal ocean that worked together with the crimson gold ancestor. When countless flaming swords and sabers charged toward Long Chen, on the other side, the Milky Way torrent charged over. Wherever it passed by, space would be torn apart and all living things would evaporate. This scene was like the fusion of water and fire. It was extremely terrifying. Standing in the middle, Long Chen could almost smell the scent of death. However, he let out a cold laugh. This was nothing. Surrender, or you'll lose your life, the crimson gold ancestor said sarcastically. Long Chen did not respond. The opponent's attack was so fierce that he could not respond at this time. He held the massacre sword in his hand and began to dance in the starry sky. In an instant, sword light soared into the sky and shattered. The entire world seemed to be raining blood. Cosmic blood rain. This was a new nomological law that Long Chen had comprehended from the massacre nomological law over the past 6,000 years. Where the long sword pointed, the cosmic blood rain. In that instant, Long Chen turned into a phantom and disappeared from this world. Between this world and this part of the universe, endless blood rain actually rained down. For a moment, the world was moved. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The cosmic blood rain poured down. Each raindrop contained 800 billion strands of sword chi of slaughter. Billions of raindrops rained down violently. The ancient blood spiritual dragon's massacre sword chi poured down to the extreme. Pest. Whether it was the crimson gold smelting furnace or the Milky Way torrent, they were instantly pierced through by the cosmic blood rain. Moreover, they were riddled with holes. In a very short period of time, these two attacks completely annihilated Long Chen. Like two mounds of dirt, they were washed clean by the storm. The massacre sword chi was unstoppable. Under the storm, the Milky Way ancestor and the crimson gold ancestor struggled to resist. They were like mortals going up against a thunderstorm. The Milky Way ancestor was unable to fend them off and was soon riddled with holes. Long Chen easily arrived beside him, extended the time, and sealed the Milky Way ancestor. He strung the Milky Way ancestor together with the astral ancestor and threw them into the divine country. Although the Milky Way ancestor did not die, he was seriously injured and his mind was on the verge of collapse. Perhaps if they had known from the start that Long Chen was so difficult to deal with, they would not have made such a plan. Now, before the others had arrived, two of the fifth era's primordial ancestor gods were being held hostage by Long Chen. How can this be? Terrifying. Terrifying. The crimson gold ancestor found it extremely difficult to resist. When he saw that the Milky Way ancestor had also been held hostage by Long Chen, he felt a lingering fear and fled in a panic. As he fled, he shouted, "Everyone! This Long Chen is extremely powerful. The three of us are not his match at all." Before he could finish speaking, he stopped abruptly. He was the only one left. Of course, Long Chen would not let him escape. As he fled, Long Chen held the massacre sword in his hand and smirked coldly. This time, apart from the terrifying cosmos blood rain, he had also comprehended another law. Epic killing art. Whoosh. With the aid of the law of time, he was extremely fast. With a slash of his sword, the crimson gold ancestor's head flew off. Why can't I block it? So fast. The fleeing crimson gold ancestor was instantly heavily injured. While he was in shock, time penetrated his body, and he became the third fifth era's primordial ancestor god who had been strung together in time. Of course you can't block it. If you could, it would prove that you are more powerful than me. But you are far from it. The epic killing art was simply unstoppable. It was also a powerful assassination weapon. Perhaps only someone at the level of the Chi-Yu demon ancestor could guarantee that he could block Long Chen. As for the Chi-Yu demon ancestor, he was actually very close to the fourth era's primordial ancestor god. Step by step, Long Chen was approaching the peak of the myriad worlds. By the time he finished off the three fifth era's primordial ancestor gods and strung them together, not much time had passed. The remaining 5th era's primordial ancestor gods had yet to catch up. Too slow. With a flash, Long Chen fled the battlefield. Now, he had basically controlled the situation. The luminous gold ancestor and the devil silver ancestor were unable to do anything to the primal chaos ancestor and the primordial war ancestor. As for the remaining 5th era's primordial ancestor gods, if Long Chen did not take the initiative to appear, they would not be able to catch up. Let's go! Not long after, the 5th era's primordial ancestor gods arrived on the battlefield. However, when they saw the aftermath of the battle, they were all dumbfounded. Not much time had passed since they discovered Long Chen's traces. But Chapter 3568. Gather together and don't scatter. Find him. Use all your methods. The bright gold ancestor's furious voice spread throughout the destruction ancestral zone. It caused countless space and stars to tremble. He and the devilish silver ancestor had turned into steel to imprison the chaos ancestral god and primordial war ancestor. They could not afford to be distracted at all. Otherwise, the plan would be useless if the chaos ancestral god and primordial war ancestor escaped. With their ability, they were naturally clearly aware that Long Chen had defeated 3 progenitor ancestral gods of the 5th era in an extremely short period of time, and he'd created a miracle by taking 3 hostages. The chaos ancestral god had been a little worried at first, but there was even less to worry now. He was even quite relaxed, saying with a mocking smile, "You really are laughable. You can underestimate anyone, but you can't underestimate him. Do you still want to continue? I don't think there's a need. If this goes on, you'll only be humiliating yourselves. I'm still curious. What is your goal? There's no need to hide it at this point." The bright gold ancestor gritted his teeth. "It's still early. Victory hasn't been decided. Don't be too pleased. I want to see what other methods you have to capture Long Chen." Boom boom boom. The chaos ancestral god and primordial war ancestor continued to attack. At this rate, the bright gold ancestor and the others would not be able to hold on. At this moment, the 2 pieces of steel were already cracking continuously. On the other side, the 2 4th era ancestral gods were about to escape. If the shockwaves of the battle reached the destruction ancestral zone, it might not be able to stop the 2 4th era ancestral gods. On the other side, the 7 5th era ancestral gods searched bitterly but could not find Long Chen. Even if they found traces of him, Long Chen could leave in an instant. Now that they had something on him, Long Chen planned to waste time like this. In any case, the chaos ancestral god and the others would deal with him. He just had to ensure his own safety. Devilish Silver, I'm going to use 100,000 years of cultivation to use that move. The bright gold ancestor said through gritted teeth. Perhaps, this was their only chance. If we weren't suppressing these 2, we wouldn't need to use 100,000 years of cultivation. However, this is all we can do. The devilish silver ancestor nodded. This was their only chance. It was something that could be executed normally, but now, he had to split his 100,000 years of cultivation to execute it. In a moment of desperation, the bright gold ancestor did as he said. At this moment, a piece of metal suddenly split off and condensed into the bright gold ancestor's appearance. This was the bright gold ancestor's 100,000 years of cultivation. Not good. The chaos ancestral god naturally knew that the 100,000 years of cultivation was targeted at Long Chen. He had no choice but to use his trump card. Because the luminous gold ancestor was distracted, the damage to the steel became worse. Once the primal chaos ancestor came out, there was nothing he could do. There wasn't much time left. The split luminous gold ancestor shone brightly in the starry sky, just like the inextinguishable sun that could destroy the ancestral domain. Golden sound freeze. A natural law from the 4th era swept out. Ding. It was a crisp sound that reverberated throughout the starry sky in a very short period of time. Everyone could hear it. When the voice rang out, the bright gold ancestor's 100,000 years of cultivation turned to ashes. All of his power was contained within the laws. The terrifying effect of this natural law was, when Long Chen heard that crisp sound, the natural law attacked his body. He couldn't resist it at all. He couldn't escape this golden sound freeze no matter where he went. Wang. In an instant, thousands of golden runes spread from his ears and instantly engulfed his entire body. Those golden runes locked onto Long Chen, causing Long Chen to shine with a golden light that was comparable to the bright gold ancestors. Naturally, his location in the starry sky was instantly exposed. The 7 Fifth Era's primal ancestor gods easily knew where he was. In an instant, they had found Long Chen's location and chased after him with all their might. If that was all, Long Chen wasn't worried. What was more terrifying was that this natural law was called Golden Sound Freeze, and the key was the last word: freeze. That's right, Long Chen had been frozen in the starry sky and wouldn't be able to move for a short period of time. The bright gold ancestor had spent 100,000 years of power just to freeze Long Chen. This is going to be troublesome. Long Chen realized that this was troublesome. Now that the 5th Era's primal ancestor gods had surrounded him, the only thing he could do was expel this natural law. After all, he wasn't that far away from the bright gold ancestor. Long Chen. Wait a moment. We'll be there soon. The primal ancestor god transmitted his voice. No problem. Although it was troublesome, Long Chen wasn't scared. He was using his 3 world origin forces to resist the Golden Sound Freeze's natural law. Both sides engaged in an intense battle on Long Chen's body. Slaughter, time, and life condensed into streaks of sword energy that attacked the golden runes. After countless attacks, he used the cosmic blood rain. After all, this golden sound freeze wasn't the bright gold ancestor's full power. Furthermore, it covered such a large area, so there was no reason it couldn't be expelled. Of course, it needed time. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. It was a dangerous moment. After about 30 breaths of time, the 7 ancestral gods of the 5th Era arrived together. They were all extremely excited and pleasantly surprised. To them, this was the best chance to complete their mission. Surround him. Someone ordered. In an instant, Long Chen's escape route was completely sealed. The 7 Fifth Era's primal ancestor gods appeared around him and set up natural laws so that Long Chen couldn't escape. After the 7 Fifth Era's primal ancestor gods arrived, Long Chen also saw a split body of the devilish silver ancestor. She had probably been searching for Long Chen all this time and had finally appeared. She stood coldly to the side, probably waiting for an opportunity. Clearly, if they wanted to kill him, the fatal blow would be delivered by her. Everyone, I'm out of ideas now. You guys have won. But you have to let me know why, right? Long Chen could already speak while he was struggling. Ignore him. He's stalling for time. Let's attack together so that he can't retaliate first. The bright gold ancestor had fought for this opportunity with great difficulty, so they were also extremely nervous. These two were equivalent to the 5th Era's primal ancestor gods born at the beginning of the epic. One of them was a woman with a gorgeous divine body that had 9 colors and was covered in halos. If the steel race was divided into beauty and ugliness, then this should be the most beautiful of them all. Long Chen remembered her. Her name was the 9-color ancestor. The other was a dark-skinned youth who looked like a skinny iron rod. However, this person was even more terrifying. He should be the strongest below the bright gold ancestor and the devilish silver ancestor. At this moment, he was sealing Long Chen on the other side. This person was called the Ghost Steel Ancestor. Boom! At this moment, the Ghost Steel Ancestor charged over and punched Long Chen. Long Chen's divine body immediately cracked and almost exploded. The power of a simple punch was heaven-defying. Let's injure him together. All the ancestor gods swarmed forward. They didn't want to kill Long Chen, but to control him. Therefore, at this time, the devilish silver ancestor's clone was still in the periphery, but it seemed like he was ready to charge forward. It seemed like Long Chen was finished. However, at this moment, a miracle happened. After his desperate resistance and the Ghost Steel ancestor's punch, Long Chen completely broke through the rules set by the Golden Sound. Although he was injured, it was only enough to restore his mobility. To Long Chen, it wasn't a big deal. Tai Chi Life Body. After entering this state, Long Chen did 2 things. The first was, of course, to use the Tai Chi Life Body to make himself indestructible. As long as he didn't die from his injuries, they would soon be nourished and healed. The second thing was that all the 5th Era's ancestral gods were attacking him in a frenzy, so there was no time for him to escape. Long Chen was rather straightforward. He used time to chain the Crimson Gold Ancestor and the other two ancestral gods in front of him, completely protecting him. If they wanted to injure him, they had to kill these three first. Retreat! Chapter 3569. By now, Long Chen had mostly recovered. His left hand gripped time, which had the ancestor of pure gold wrapped around it. His right hand gripped slaughter. Both defense and attack. It was truly amazing. Long Chen didn't say anything else. At this time, there was still one more 5th era ancestral god who hadn't finished withdrawing and was attacking. Long Chen grabbed the three ancestral gods and seized the opportunity to attack. Era killing art. Rip. A head flew out. Long Chen heavily injured another 5th era ancestral god. Time shot over and wrapped around him. That person panicked and couldn't escape from Long Chen's imprisonment. Almost half of the 10 5th era ancestral gods were imprisoned by Long Chen. Only 6 were left. They had just been threatened by Long Chen to stop. They didn't expect another 5th era ancestral god to fall into Long Chen's hands. Damn it! How can he move? This guy is so cunning and has a weakness. What should we do? Even the 9-colored ancestor panicked. The 6 of them didn't know what to do. After all, any attack would determine the life or death of the 5th era ancestral god. They were clearly aware how difficult it was to become a grand ancestral god of the 5th era. They were all destruction ancestral gods. They had cultivated step by step for billions of years. Only after a long time had they cultivated 5 world origins. Now, for lives were in Long Chen's hands. With Long Chen's savagery, he might really kill them. After all, destruction ancestral gods were different from creation ancestral gods. Everyone, be obedient. Swords have no eyes. You don't have a chance now. My 2 seniors are about to be freed as well. If you don't believe me, please take a look. Long Chen had captured 4 people. Although it had been dangerous, he was now in control of the whole situation. Everyone saw that the bright gold ancestor was in an unprecedented state. It was clear that he was under great pressure. Perhaps he wouldn't be able to bear it in the next moment. Bright gold ancestor. Devil silver ancestor. What should we do? At this juncture, they couldn't make a decision. Only the bright gold ancestor and devil silver ancestor could make the decision. When Long Chen broke the golden Ming Ding, the bright gold ancestor almost vomited blood in anger. Now that life and death were hanging by a thread, the chances were getting slimmer. He roared, "Kill them! Ignore them and let the devil silver puppet succeed." Yes! The ghost iron ancestor's expression turned savage. At this moment, the ghost iron ancestor's face turned hideous. If they didn't fight, they wouldn't have a chance. The magic silver puppet followed behind them. The ancestral gods of the 5th era that Long Chen controlled were relatively weak. The other side had the ghostly metal ancestor and the 9-colored ancestor, so they were much stronger. In a direct confrontation, the ghostly metal ancestor alone could kill Long Chen. Now that it had come to this, the 6 5th era's primordial ancestral gods had charged over once more, and Long Chen was helpless as well. Epic killing art. He grabbed hold of the elder god of destruction, and without saying a word, he stabbed the slaughter art into his body, finding the location of the essence of his world. He used the epic killing art to shatter the essence of his world and slay the elder god's soul. In the blink of an eye, the terrified elder god of the 5th epoch was reduced to ashes by Long Chen. This was the first ancestor god Long Chen had killed. There was nothing he could do. It had been a long time since he had killed someone. This is the first. After killing it, he hurriedly retreated. With his control, even if the other side surrounded him, they might not be able to stop him. Only the 9-colored ancestor and the ghost iron ancestor posed a greater threat to him. Xueqi metal ancestor. Perhaps they hadn't expected Long Chen to actually kill them. When they saw the Xueqi metal ancestor perish before their eyes, they were stunned and their hearts went cold. In truth, they might have felt that today's operation wasn't that important. Now, only one had died. If the remaining 3 all died, then even if they won in the end, what would be the point? If you come again, I won't be polite with the 3 of them. Long Chen's epic killing art was already on the Milky Way ancestor's neck. He was waiting for the other to continue attacking, and then he would begin the next round of slaughter. If the other really didn't care about anything, then he would be killing himself if he continued to be polite. If he killed all four, then he could think of a way to escape. And the time he had bought was more than enough. Milky Way. The Gostran Steel ancestor was the first to stop. The Milky Way ancestor was actually his lover, which made things much easier. With him stopping, and the other fifth epics trembling, the 6 elder gods once again stopped fighting. Now that Long Chen didn't have to kill any more elder gods. Beast, let go of Milky Way. The ghost iron ancestor's eyes were fierce, and the starry sky behind him was completely shattered. It was clear how angry he was. Long Chen said, Ghost Iron Ancestor, think about it carefully. I have no intention of becoming enemies with all of you. You forced me to kill one of you just now. As for the Milky Way ancestor, I'm the same as you. I don't want to kill her as long as you don't force me. If she dies in battle, then you'll be the one to kill her. I feel that now that things have come to this, you should at least let me know what you want. Was this matter really more important than the lives of these 4 people? Or is it the selfish desires of the luminous gold ancestor and the devil silver ancestor? Long Chen's words hit the nail on the head. The ghost iron ancestor had been extremely agitated, but now he was stunned. The remaining 6 ancestor gods all looked at each other. What are you waiting for? Attack! The luminous gold ancestor's berserk voice reverberated, causing the entire starry sky to shatter. However, the 6 of them didn't move. They were watching Long Chen's slaughter, their hearts in turmoil. All of them were going crazy. Ghost Iron Ancestor, tell me. What's the reason? What's the point? Long Chen asked in a clear voice. Even now, he didn't know what the other party wanted to do. He was quite speechless. The Ghost Iron Ancestor hesitated. The pressure from the luminous gold ancestor was increasing. He struggled and said, I'll tell you, but you have to promise to let them go. I can't let them go, but I can let the Milky Way ancestor go. Long Chen still wanted to keep his trump card. No, I can't say it now. The 9-colored ancestor interrupted him. Her colorful eyes stared at Long Chen and she said in a sharp voice, You don't need to scare us. I'll attack. With that, she charged at Long Chen alone. It seemed that she didn't care about the lives of the hostages in Long Chen's hands. The others didn't dare to attack. The 9-colored ancestor charged forward. Seeing this, Long Chen didn't say a word. He prepared to kill the Milky Way ancestor. However, at this time, the Ghost Iron ancestor roared and knocked the 9-colored ancestor away. Stop! The Ghost Iron ancestor roared mournfully after resolving the crisis for Long Chen. Of course, Long Chen couldn't be bothered to kill. As long as he wasn't in danger, he could just drag things out. In any case, the primal chaos ancestral god was just a little bit weaker. The luminous gold ancestor didn't even have time to give orders. It was obvious how troublesome it was. No matter what, this strange plan of yours is destined to fail, Long Chen said. However, he had miscalculated. He had been paying attention to the 6 fifth-era ancestral gods and hadn't paid much attention to the Devil Silver puppet. By the time Long Chen noticed it, the Devil Silver puppet had already blinked in front of him. This was the Devil Silver ancestor's final attack. She had been pretending to be weak earlier because she was waiting for Long Chen to be careless. After all, this was a part of the Devil Silver ancestor. It was naturally even more terrifying than the surrounding 5th-era ancestral gods. Hiss! In the blink of an eye, countless needles sprouted out of the Devil Silver puppet's body. Without saying a word, she wrapped her arms around time and transformed it into liquid form, using the needles to pierce through the essence of time itself. Yes! When the Devil Silver puppet turned into liquid form and attacked, Long Chen felt a piercing pain from his ancestral soul. This Devil Silver puppet actually has the effect of defying the heavens and changing fate. It wants to fuse with my ancestral soul. Perhaps he finally understood the Devil Silver ancestor's thoughts and plans. However, Long Chen wasn't one to wait for death. Swoosh! The slaughter sword stabbed into the magic silver puppet's body, and the sword aura pierced through the puppet's body, sending it flying. However, the time sword had indeed been pierced, and if it had been a step slower, the entire magic silver puppet would have been sucked into the time sword. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.